clear it. So if you decide you want to lower your hand, you will be removed from the speakers list and put at the bottom of the list. But otherwise, it'll be in the order of speaking, so Jake doesn't have to write things down. Oh wait, this is my older version. Hold on, give me 2 seconds, everyone.
It's under participants, Adeline.
Yeah. Also, it's worth noting that the agenda is going to be, I'm going to motion to add the changes from our original agenda that includes striking liaison reports, executive reports, etc. I'll motion for that. So if you don't want that to happen, feel free to discuss and vote that down. We'll go back to our traditional agenda, but I have to motion to edit the agenda from what's in the bylaws.
Before we get to that, also, if you wish to speak as a point of privilege, Tom is going to be looking at the participants basically in the same vein of where the raise hand feature is. You're going to want to click on go faster, and that'll also pop up in the participants, and we'll get to see it. And then also, so that's how you're going to speak during questions or discussions, and then speaking as a point of privilege. And then voting on legislation or amendments will begin by showing a vote on the using the poll. So Jake will activate that. But then there's also going to be opportunities to vote via participants. So it's kind of like the straw poll. So you'll go into participants and then either click yes, no, or you can use go slower to abstain. If you have any questions or if you have any amendments on legislation or policy, direct message Tim. You can do that in the chat. You can just go into the to area, and instead of selecting everyone, you would go and just type in Tim. Then you would send him what the amendment is, and then you would speak on it. And if you have any other questions, agenda will be on Liza's screen. The legislation policies will be on my screen. But if you have any other questions, just direct message Tom or me. And yeah, we'll do our best to help you out.
Eddie, we can't see who voted and voted for what poll until afterward. We can print out a report, which is why we're doing both. But like during the meeting, we can't see who voted for what. Except we can with the poll on the side by seeing like what participants voted for. Should we get started then?
Yeah, I think we have enough people here. More people might be coming, but I think we definitely have quorum.
All right. Well, then I call this meeting, this Wednesday, March 18th meeting to order at 8 p.m. Tim is going to take roll call just by looking at who's in the room right now. And then, yeah, so Speaker Sarabach, you have motions for the adoption of the agenda?
Yeah. So I have a few different. I'm going to motion first to strike special presentation because we don't have any motion to, or I guess I need a second. I don't know how does seconding.
Can someone hit the raised hand button if they
second. Yeah, in chat. Yeah, chat. You can also do seconds in chat. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that also works. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'm going to motion to strike open student forum because this is essentially a closed meeting. We will be recording it later. I'm going to motion to strike liaison reports just because I think the goal is it's going to be a long meeting anyways. I'm open for discussion on that, but I don't know if anybody has anything. No, anything? Okay. I'm going to motion to strike old business because I don't think there is any. Is there a hand up? Did you see that? Like John Biovich, you want
to? Representative Miller, do you have a motion for the agenda? I'll unmute you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about So like the borough position, it's now going to be pushed back, I'm assuming, since elections have been pushed back and like we won't be here. So I don't know where we would talk about that, and like would that have to change anything? Yeah.
I'm okay with keeping liaison reports in, so I'll motion to add back liaison reports to the agenda. Or I guess I'll withdraw whatever, okay. So we'll move on from there. Motion to strike caucus breakout from the agenda.
Yep.
And then motion to strike executive reports from the agenda. Okay, that's all my motions.
Chair Tactical, you have a motion?
No, I was trying to second because someone said to raise their hand, but I guess not.
Oh, we're doing it in the chat, sorry. Representative Lizinski,
I motion to strike adoption of the minutes.
is there a second?
Well, is there meeting minutes from the last meeting? Shouldn't those be?
I haven't been able to include the committee of the whole ones yet, so I've been holding off on releasing those.
Okay, second.
Cool. Chair McKay,
I move to add resolution number 5314, support of HR 3598 Freed Vets Act under new business.
there is a second. Thank you. Chair Santos. Oh, sorry.
Could I do 3 motions at once, or do I have to like wait for adding on pieces of legislation?
You can, as long as you get a second, you can just keep going.
Okay, cool. So motion to add resolution 5514, support of online university faculty senate policy violation forms. Cool.
There's
You guys want me to just go through and add all the legislation up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do that. And then motion to add resolution 5614, support of university faculty senate COVID-19 resolution, satisfactory, unsatisfactory grades. Cool. And then resolution 5814, support of relaxing synchronous online class state requirement for Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency financial aid beneficiaries. Cool. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Chair McKay. Oh, sorry, did not unmute you. Oh, you don't have anything. All right. Any other motions for the adoption of the agenda? Is there any way we can update the agenda that we're seeing right now so that it's up to date with what's been added, Ben?
I'm currently updating the agenda, but I also have more additional motions for the adoption agenda just because I have the rest of the legislation. So which one do we go? We have 53, 55, 56, and 58, I think, are all the ones Diego and Zach got up. Am I correct on that? Because I have multiple more pieces of legislation that again were sent. So I'm going to motion to add line item C, resolution 5214, housing support of, see what it's called exactly. Support of Penn State housing, proration, room, and dining charges for the spring 2020 semester. Is that seconded? And then I want a motion to add resolution 5414, moratorium, or encouraging Governor Wolf and the Borough Council to support a moratorium on evictions. And then finally, and this will all be updated during Lauren Jake's report so everyone can see it, motion to add resolution 5714, support of paid leave for student workers due to campus closure and the coronavirus pandemic.
Are there any other motions for the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, and seeing no adoption of the past general meeting minutes, we'll now hear a report by President McKinney.
All right, can everyone hear me? Or can you hear me? Hello?
You're good. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Some people can't.
Some people can't.
It's just quiet.
Oh,
Just, yeah.
hello.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. Hold on. All right, there we go. All right. Hi, everyone. I know this past week has been a whirlwind of information and emotions, and I hope everyone is taking care of themselves and practicing healthy habits at this time. As I shared briefly in a Teams message a bit earlier, I can't express enough how utterly proud I am of this group, now more than ever, really. I've been in a cycle of nonstop Zoom calls over the past week, many of which have been with some of you at one point or another, and to see each one of you step up in your own way for the student community at Penn State has made me prideful and quite emotional at times. Even over social media, to see you all reach out to one another and the community has lifted my heart. You all are exemplifying what leadership is in standing up for students that you took an This is one of those defining times in life, and you are making your definition of it strength, compassion, and love. So thank you so, so much for that. Into my report, as you can imagine, this past week has been crazy, quite busy. I've been doing the best I can to stay on top of my email inbox, which has been full of valuable questions from students and administrators about the current circumstance. I've been working to be the best communicator and connecting piece between those students and university offices and administration. This week, I attended a Zoom meeting for the Faculty Senate Committee on Student Life, where we discussed the unsatisfactory and satisfactory grade option in which the Faculty Senate passed a resolution for later on in the day. We also had a special presentation from David Smith from Undergraduate Advising and another special presentation from Daniel Zahn talking about the Chicago Statement. Additionally, Vice President Sims spoke about ways that the university is trying to alleviate financial burdens for students during this time, including reaching out to the university's donor and alumni relations network to raise money for the Student Emergency Fund for students who are in need right now. Following that call, I had a Zoom meeting with Vice President Griggs, GPSA, CCSG, and World Campus leadership to collectively discuss student feedback we have been receiving from all angles regarding the recent events. We were able to come together and talk about advocacy points relevant to each of our constituencies that we'll be bringing to senior administration this coming Monday. Yesterday, I had a call with all of the other student body presidents in the Big Ten to update one another on what our schools are doing in this time of crisis and to offer support and ideas to get through it. I was able to collect some valuable insight that I'll be taking into consideration in advocacy efforts with administration going forward. Today, I was able to have a call with our wonderful advisor, Barry, to catch up, but we also had the chance to talk briefly about the transition of leadership that will be happening for UPUA in the coming month. I want to reassure everyone that I am fully committed to making it as smooth of a transition as possible for the next executive team. There's going to be quite a lot of information to communicate, and although it will be virtually, it will be done thoroughly. Outside of the context of this past week, I'm still very much looking forward to continuing to work on meaningful projects from afar that I was in the midst of working on before leaving for spring break. So this includes the holistic wellness report to be given to student affairs, which, as I said before break, would include all work that the UPUA has done in the past, and especially this past year through advocacy and events that would recommend to the university our desired goal to make holistic wellness a priority on campus. Additionally, in some very positive news, right before break, I got word that the library is committing to ordering menstrual product dispensers for 18 of their restrooms. The order is put on hold until some of the dust settles a bit with the crisis going on at school, but to my understanding, the dispensers should be live starting in the fall. So that's great news. I will keep you updated as I learn more about it going forward. Additionally, this week, a mass email will be going out on behalf of myself and GPSA President Claire Kelling about student fee board applications. Please spread the word and encourage people to apply. Before I hand it back to Jake, please remember to be kind to yourselves during this time. Make it simple and take it one day at a time. Don't look too far ahead. Be present. Feel whatever you need to feel and know better days are coming. We may be all over the world and country, but you're not alone. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you, and I'm floored that I get the chance to serve as president a few extra weeks alongside of you all. So stay safe, stay smart, practice social distancing, and spread love. Thank you, guys.
Are there any questions for President McKinney? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into my report. A lot of it is what she said. I've been supporting Laura in any way that I can in these efforts. You guys should have seen us over spring break when the news dropped. It was like chaos, situation room, but we've been dealing with it. And again, thank you guys so much for your advocacy outside of UPA and within it. And as Laura mentioned, the points that you've brought up are being directly brought up to senior admin next Monday with the other student governments at our meeting. Other than all that stuff that Laura said that we're working on, just some updates on the initiatives I was working on. So Night of Remembrance that I've worked on with Chair Klipstein. We haven't gotten an update since the news today, but obviously that physical event will not be taking place. I know Chair Klipstein has mentioned maybe having some kind of event when we get back in the fall, the beginning of the next semester, to ensure that these students are honored in some way. So I'm sure we'll be exploring that. The Task Force on Food and Housing Security will be meeting via Zoom beginning next week. The Student Legal Services Advisory Board was canceled, which is unfortunate, but that's the way she goes. And then we haven't gotten any official word, President McKinney and I, about the wellness discussion, but again, I imagine it'll either be over Zoom or canceled. But in any case, I'll be helping her work on the wellness packet that will be going to senior admin. And then I was on the CCSG Elections Commission, which was disbanded briefly and then brought back to life, resurrected. So I will be sitting in on CCSG elections virtually this weekend as a UPA representative on their commission. So I can keep you guys updated on that. And that is all I have. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Hold on, my screen got messed up. Oh, sorry, Chair McKay. I'm trying to unmute you. Chair McKay.
Zachary McKay at large. Quick question as to the kind of like workings of the election. Kind of go hand in hand. The first is like, what is the role the UPUA plays on the commission? Kind of could you describe that a little bit? And then what are their plans for their elections themselves? What is that going to look like virtually?
Yeah, so like we don't have like a role. It's just that like historically, I don't even know if it's a UPUA seat. I think it's just supposed to be a non-CCSG representative on the Elections Commission to ensure fairness. I know last year Bobbin sat on it and this year I'm sitting on it. So essentially I'll just be performing the functions of a regular elections commissioner, but I'm not from within the organization. And the details are still being ironed out as far as format wise, but it essentially, like the rest of CCSG Council Weekend, will be one big Zoom call. I don't know about the specifics of what's public or what's not. They're going to try to adhere to the normal format of question and answer for the candidates and things like that. But I think those details will be very much have to be figured out as we get closer in the week, which is fast approaching. So I'm not super clear, but I can update you as soon as I have more concrete details.
Cool, thanks.
No problem. Any other questions for me? Seeing none, we'll move straight into new business, beginning with policy 0714, ad hoc on outreach committee by bylaw revisions. Speaker Sarabach, would you please introduce this legislation?
Okay, exciting stuff here, people. This is the ad hoc on outreach bylaws. It includes all the points discussed on the floor last week during the committee of the whole. And all the changes. I'll be going through clause by clause so we can vote up or down any different clauses. For example, if you look at the end, I took like the jurisdiction to analyze diversity, equity, and inclusion idea, put it in steering. If people still don't like it completely, we can take it out. But I know there was some kind of push to put that somewhere else possibly. So that's being considered, but I'll go through clause by clause. You can find it in your email under the assembly announcement. If you want to go to the 14th assembly group on Outlook, you can scroll down. It also is here in the Zoom, and you can pinch in and view it. If anyone has any issue viewing it, definitely say so in chat, just to make sure everyone knows what we're discussing. Yeah, and Eddie, it's up on screen sharing. It's on, I don't know whose screen it is. It's on right now. It's on, I think
It's on mine.
Ben. Yeah, it's on
Yeah.
Ben's. So if you go to Ben's screen, it is up, and you can pinch it and zoom in. I'll just wait to see if you got it. Is everyone good to go? Okay, cool. So if anyone has anything else, definitely mention it. This is not a perfect process whatsoever because we're on Zoom. So yeah, I'll start with the start. The start again is the change between liaison and affiliates. The idea that an affiliate is somebody from an external organization going into the UPUA as kind of as a voice. Ben's screen is black for Marlowe. Okay. Yeah, I also see it, so I'm not sure what the exact. Yeah, this is weird.
It's probably good to have it pulled up on your own just in case you can't see it, because some people are seeing it, some people aren't. Because I can see it too.
Yeah. Definitely feel free to, if you're on a laptop, to pull it up. Again, it's in the group, the Outlook group, 14th Assembly. It should be in multiple emails, but especially the UPUA General Assembly announcement from Monday at 7:30 p.m. from myself. Okay. Is everyone okay if I keep going while people look? Because I'm just kind of explaining the change. We've already seen it once. Is everyone okay?
I think you're good.
Okay. But yeah, so an affiliate is an external person coming into the UPUA as a voice from that organization, kind of informing us what they're doing, building a relationship. It's essentially the liaison position that existed before for groups like CCSG, International Student Council, all of that stuff, GPSA. But it just clarifies that there's a difference between liaison and affiliate, because in the previous version, a liaison, technically, if you look at the language, will not be allowed to hold a position, but despite the fact that the past ABTS quote-unquote liaison did. So this is just a change in language. It changes it to affiliate. Is everyone good with the first clause of 1.2.7, which just changes the word liaison to affiliate? I'm just going to look at the participants. If you're good, just put, I guess, the yes and like the check mark or the green check mark. I'm also just going to look like if nobody else raises their hand, I'm just going to keep moving. So yeah, so I'm going to clarify that as good. So going down to another change, it's not just changing the word liaison affiliate. Clause 6, it strikes the idea that previously, quote unquote liaisons were supposed to actively participate in the UPUA events. This really wasn't happening just because, again, these people are from an external organization and they have a lot on their plate already. So that we struck that with the idea that to clarify the role more, and that it's kind of a voice from that group, not necessarily another member of the UPUA from that group as well. Is everyone good with that change? Okay.
And if you're not going to change you want to discuss, just raise your hand.
Yeah, for sure. And we can go back at certain points. So then the next clause, clause 6, just clarifies that that the affiliates are supposed to attend meetings if they have an excuse. If they don't have an excuse, attend meetings with the Department of Outreach and maintain contact with the Director of Outreach. So this is a change, again, kind of related to the constitutional change of creating the Department of Outreach, but essentially it says like affiliates can definitely still give reports during some of the meetings, and they're encouraged to. But this is another route of communication and kind of visibility to expand the affiliate kind of market and give them a direct line and somebody to talk to if they have specific issues they want to discuss. So that's clause 6. Is everyone pretty good with that? Okay. So I'll move on from affiliates. There's nothing else to liaisons. So with liaisons is 2.3.5. This is the first codification of something we've been doing for a while in terms of liaisons. The idea behind liaisons is that, again, we have a borough council, ABTS, pass liaisons that are representatives, and they're inside people in the organization, and they exist, but then they work with outside organizations specifically. It adds the language for that, and then adds, again, how we've done elections in the past. It also adds that it can be a member of the legislative or executive branch, which again is something we've done in the past. It's just introducing codification for something that we've done and really haven't necessarily followed directly, and it clarifies what the liaison position is. So I guess we can go through the line by line specifically. 2.3.5, liaisons shall, again, serve as the primary connection and source of communication to other relevant or external external organizations on behalf of the UPUA. Is everyone good with that wording and everything? And then Part A says organizations that the UPUA will maintain a permanent liaison to are the State College Borough Council, the Association of Big Ten Students, University Park Student Fee Board, Moving On Spring Music Festival, and the Pennsylvania Association of State-Related Students, or PASS. And then we keep the language from above that says that they can be instated by bylaws amendment or appointed at will by the speaker and confirmed by the steering committee. So is everyone good with that kind of description of what groups make up liaisons? Okay. Clause 2 of liaisons is that they're elected by a majority of non-vacant representative seats to the Assembly following nomination of floor. Again, this is the process we've done for PASS and ABTS and Moving On. So this is kind of already instated. It just clarifies, again, what we actually do in process. And then if everyone's good with that, clause 3 is, again, that it can be a member of the legislative or executive branch of the UPUA, which includes members of the freshman council and appointed staffers. Okay. So I'll move on from liaisons to designated members. Again, we're going to strike a very large majority of this, but I did keep it in. So just as I go through line by line, if you want to strike it, raise your hand and make that motion. So again, 2.3, actually, I'll just put it up for the floor now. So I guess freshman council should be first year council to address that point in chat. The issue is that I believe we're not allowed to amend bylaws. Again, I'm willing to challenge that, but I think the issue is that it's a very small change and it risks if the J board makes a decision that you can't amend bylaws based on the previous wording during a meeting on the floor, then it risks the whole bylaws being shot down. So that's my kind of worry with changing it. I think it'd be changed in the future, but I'm okay with keeping it freshman council for now, despite the fact that the name has changed elsewhere. But I'm just going to put up to the floor, I guess, a motion to strike all of the designated members, like all the language for it. Because my guess is that, you know, clause by clause won't matter. So just the idea of designated members. So can we get discussion on striking designated members? Also, I guess it needs a second. Yeah. Okay. Jake, if you want to start.
Representative Webster.
I'm muted. Okay. Can you do you want to get the designated member, decide whether we want that, and then with it move to strike it everywhere else if we don't want designated member? Just because that's the last thing. I'm guessing we don't want it, but that might make more sense order-wise.
Yeah, so essentially go through everything else and then do designated member next.
Yeah, and if we vote to strike that down, just make it so you would strike it everywhere in the document.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't think it appears anywhere else in the document, in all honesty, unless you can find a place that it does, but I'm okay with kind of going back to it after.
Okay.
Based on that, I'm going to temporarily withdraw the motion designated members, and we'll go back to it, just to keep moving. So I guess we'll move to 2.3, just to change to clause 7 of that, which just clarifies that if we do pass this and we establish affiliates, that they'll have a report at the same time as liaisons. Again, that's something we already do, just change the wording. Is everyone good with that? Okay. Okay, so this is the bigger stuff. So student life, changes student life. So the first thing we'll consider as a clause is striking disability services and diversity inclusion from student life. We move later on disability services to justice and equity, but we strike, I think, diversity and inclusion from the entire thing based off of Eddie's point that it's kind of an irrelevant term, and that's what we decided, I guess, in the committee of the whole. So is everyone good with striking disability services and diversity inclusion from the student life charges? Okay. Then we can look at clause 2, striking from student life, have jurisdiction over all university issues that affect her, but are not limited to the protected classes defined by the university, as well as international students. This clause is later moved to justice and equity, but this would strike it from student life and kind of move that charge to justice and equity. Is everyone good with striking that charge? Okay. Third charge that we're striking, again, is to be charged with outreach to and development of positive relationship with diversity groups on and off campus. We moved the bulk of this charge to justice and equity, but I did include in the later version, instead of the phrase diversity groups on and off campus, it includes specifically what registered student organizations we're discussing as diversity groups, just to clarify the message. So is everyone go with striking that charge from student life? Okay. Justice and equity, 4.3.5. So justice and equity, the existence of it, yeah, I guess. Is everyone good with creating justice and equity for now? We could probably vote yes or no on the whole thing or the charges if somebody does oppose creating it. But yeah, okay. So looking at the charges, so clause 1 says have jurisdiction to address issues in the realm of disability services, educational equity, and instances of bias and discrimination. This is the most, I guess, quote unquote, tangible charge of justice and equity. It gives them 3 different areas that they can talk about. It doesn't include anything very general. It includes very literal things. But that's like some of the specific charges for justice and equity. Is everyone good with that clause? Clause 2 of justice and equity is have jurisdiction over all university issues that affect, but are not limited to the protected classes defined by the university, as well as international students. That is the area where we kind of, I think, imply some of the things behind diversity inclusion, but then we specify, we're talking about protected classes specifically and international students. Yeah. So is everyone good with that charge clause? Clause 3, retain the director of outreach as a non-voting member of the committee. This would be the idea that outreach is an important aspect of justice and equity, but the director of outreach will then sit on it as well. Clause 4 relates to that as well. It mentions outreach specifically, and it says development of a positive relationship with RSOs, and then it lists the specific types. We agreed on international, multicultural, religious, spiritual, or residence hall special living options as the 3 types of RSOs considered by the university that we would kind of focus on with justice and equity in terms of our outreach with that group. So I'm gonna go with that clause. Okay. Clause 6 is the final clause. It's going to be have jurisdiction, and this is in every other standing committee as well, but it's have jurisdiction to identify and address issues within the realm of university strategic planning, board trustees issues, university contacts, fee boards, committees, relevant committee responsibilities. So every other committee is charged with this. So is everyone good with this final charge of justice and equity? Okay, cool. Moving on to steering. The first thing is just a change in the number of steering. The most major change is the addition of the director of outreach to be a non-voting member of steering, kind of like the director of communications. Again, this implies that outreach is still like a vital thing to the UPUA, but it clarifies that it's a director that is appointed rather than the actual chair of outreach committee, because there won't be necessarily an outreach committee. So we're good with that. Okay, this clause, again, probably the one that has discussion. Clause 4, have jurisdiction to analyze the UPUA's internal diversity, equity, inclusion, propose best new practices. So again, this was in justice and equity. The room, as pretty much as a whole, said we definitely don't want it in justice and equity. Some people wanted it in another area, possibly steering. Some people didn't want it at all. So can I get thoughts on this? Is everyone okay with having it steering? Okay, yeah, stuff.
Representative Webster.
Oh, I would motion to strike it from justice and equity at the very least.
It's definitely not in justice and equity. It's only in steering right now. This is like the official version.
Never
passed.
mind. We're
Yeah.
fine then.
Any other discussion on this?
Okay, it looks like everyone's pretty cool with having it in steering. Does anyone want to strike it completely? Okay, conversation.
Representative Mishler.
Hi. I just think there was like discussion last time we talked about this, if we can actually like charge steering with this, or if I don't know. So maybe just some more discussion, because I'm not fully like made my mind up on that, but it seems like there's really no opposition right now. So
Representative Webster, you've already spoken once. Anyone else who wants to speak one more time, speak.
Me?
Representative.
I'm unmuted. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just had a question. What do you mean by best new practices? What are you discussing when you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion? When do they have to propose these new practices? Like, is there a deadline for them? Do they have to present them by the end of the assembly? Yeah, just more clarification.
So I think the idea behind this, again, originally justice and equity, was there was not a lot of specifics involved, because to keep it general, so steering could kind of decide what they want to do with this charge into the future, because again, the issue might change. I think the issue, again, with internal diversity, equity, inclusion, that phrase is very similar to the issue presented before with diversity and inclusion, where it's a very general phrase. It doesn't really have a lot of meaning, especially because it's been overused. But I think the idea is to keep that very general. I don't think there'd be any specific implementation involved with it. It's just the idea that this is an important thing that we should consider. We talk about new best practices that can be anything that might improve the issue. But it's just kind of reinforcing that this charge should exist. And yeah, Eddie in chat, you're right. There was discussion on the floor in terms of moving it from justice, equity to steering. I'm okay with striking from the whole thing, but that's kind of what, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's general purpose.
Chair Pathfield.
I just saw in the chat Izzy wanted someone to comment on it. Genuinely, I think, I mean, I'm okay with it being in writing, but if I'm going to be honest, I think this should be a role that steering already does, as like they're like essentially they are the leaders of the organization, and this is something that they should be doing in practice when they're interviewing people, when they're working on initiatives. I think this is inevitable. It should be something that we're doing actively, and I mean, I'm kind of indifferent if it's in writing or not, but like just a reminder, like this is something that we should always be doing. But if it's in writing, cool. If not, just remember your responsibility in the position that you hold. Yeah.
Representative Wood.
Yeah, I was just going to speak on the same thing Lexi was talking about. In my experience from steering, it is something that we did just informally whenever we were doing interviews and those sorts of things. We did take into consideration diverse experiences, backgrounds, thoughts, those sorts of things. And I think this just codifies something that's already being done in practice and makes it a responsibility of future steerings.
Representative Miller.
Oh, I just have a question. So I wouldn't essentially like strike this. I would just vote no, correct?
Yeah. So we would just vote on this clause since there's discussion.
Okay.
Representative Sanchez.
Yeah, so after like discussions with the rest of my executive board and some of the members, we definitely, the biggest argument for having it, I can see why people think it may be meaningless. I can see why people may think that, you know, they steering should already be doing it. I agree. That is something that should be already occurring. But the biggest thing about putting this in writing is just for the future, if no active steps have been made, the caucus could come back later, and it's something we're going to include in our transition materials as to something to say, hey, you guys, you know, this is in your charges, this is in your bylaws, and we haven't seen any active efforts towards it. So it's really just something to help accountability later on. So a lot of times these discussions get kind of lost in the you know, mix of different assemblies and stuff like that. We saw with, you know, the caucus seats, how those conversations were being had at earlier times, and no one really knew. So this is just kind of something that we can put in there and hold future assemblies accountable if no active steps are being taken. And, you know, 10 years down the line, if I'm getting calls from Latino caucus people about how, you know, there's so many issues with UPUA and diversity and stuff, then it's like, okay, this is something we can revisit, and this is a conversation we can talk about. So I can definitely see people's feelings about it being unnecessary, and steering should already be doing it. So I really just don't see too much of an issue with just adding it in there, so that in the future someone can kind of hold the assembly accountable, and steering especially.
Representative Richardson.
So yeah, as I said before, I don't think that this is in current practice. I think that, as I said, we had one survey and it didn't really do anything. This clause would make sense if it said, okay, the Chief Justice should make weekly or monthly reports about diversity and equity, and then make solutions or such to try to fix this. But if we have this one clause, this doesn't stop the Chief Justice or UPUA to say, okay, we did one survey at the end of the whole assembly, so therefore we did our job. So I don't see this really having any substance.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the floor for discussion. So I'm going to release a poll for an amendment, but I'm also going to ask everybody to vote in the participants tab using the yes or no stickers. Just to clarify, voting yes is a vote in order to keep this clause under steering, and a vote no is to strike it.
Ben, can you remove the fact that I'm a host so I can vote in the poll?
So please, only if you're a rep, take the time to vote both in the poll and under participants. And we need the numbers to match up, so please make sure you do that. Tom, what's the number of reps we have? Or Tim, or anybody?
Okay, I believe it was 38 people were here last I counted. We could definitely do a recount right now.
So you can see under participants are representatives who haven't voted yet. Please do so. I don't want to say specific names, but I mean, everybody can see who hasn't voted. We're 1 vote short, 2 votes short in the poll right now.
Please vote. We can see if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, we can also
Please
see
do.
if you don't have your screen on the meeting and aren't paying attention. So please do it. It's governing documents. This is very important. Tim or Tom, is there a number we have to hit for people voting on an amendment?
I think Trent would be able to answer that, but I think it's only 50% that we would need for this vote, and then 2/3 for the entire thing.
Yep.
But, Trent can confirm that.
Yeah.
Also,
But-
just a reminder that the go slower button can be used as an abstention.
All right, I'm going to go through real quick and just say the names of reps who haven't voted yet. Representative Wu, Representative Biswas, sorry, that's being finicky. Representative Hassanpour, Representative Rodriguez, Representative Pryor, Representative Jung, Representative Choi. Please vote. We're going to close soon. We have 3 votes short in the poll that people have voted in the chat and not in the poll. So they're all yes votes that we're short on. So please do so if you haven't voted in both. The names I just read out are, I don't have votes under participants, which means they didn't hit the yes or no sticker. It's also possible that it didn't get your vote. I don't know. I'm just reading what I have on my screen. All right, is everybody good if I go and close voting? Again, in the future, we do not have it matched up, so please vote in the poll and under participants. But we can't wait here all night. So I'm going to go ahead and close voting. And the amendment passes 34-2. And everybody can see that, yes? Cool. All right. Speaker Sarah Block, shall we move on? If you're there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sorry. I didn't have like host powers temporarily just for voting. Next thing, point 4. This clarifies that if we do create a 5th standing committee, that you could may serve as a voting member on more than you can only serve on 3 committees. So it increases the limit on committees you can sit on from 2 to 3. Our thought process is plenty of people were sitting on, Outreach already, which is a pretty taxing subcommittee. So the idea is that, to make sure that we still have the amount of people that are interested in the subject, you can sit on 3 standing committees. This might be one that has discussion, so that's definitely welcome. But yeah. Is there any issue with that? Yep.
Representative Akers.
Am I unmuted? Okay. I definitely get the idea of expanding it. I just don't think I think we've had enough issues this year regarding the like committees meeting quorum and being able to vote. So I think putting enough, like people on 2 standing committees is plenty. I know like in the past, like representatives have sat on 3 or more committees, but they just haven't been voting members. They've been able to go to Gov Affairs, Facilities, Student Life, and participate on all of the committees, but just aren't a voting member of one. And that's the speaker's decision on how to allocate them to the different committees to make them their official voting committees. But I just think like putting someone on, even I know it's an option and people can manage their own time. I just, from my experience, like putting chairs in positions where they can't meet quorum is not a good look for the assembly to have to constantly be bringing pieces by 2/3.
Representative Lizinski.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're unmuted.
So yeah, I agree with Representative Akers on this point. I think if we allow people to be on 3 committees, that's just too many. I mean, we've seen it this year in Gov Affairs where we've just had people drop. I think we've lost at least 5 representatives this year. I could be wrong on that number. Might be more, might be less. But personally, I sat on Outreach and 2 standing committees last year, and it was a lot. I think we should allow it. No, nothing stopping a representative from going and, like Representative Akers said, with the going to a standing committee and just not being a voting member. They still have speaking privileges. So I think allowing 3 is just too many.
Representative Wood.
So just speaking from my experience as the AAC chair last year, we had a lot of people drop between semesters because of workloads and those sorts of things. And it's really hard for a chair to like reallocate projects and have people pick up where they left off where others left off because the workload can be so high. And attendance can run up really quick when you're just missing 1 meeting for your 1 committee and a meeting of the assembly, and having 3 committees that you're responsible for and assembly can lead to, I think, attendance points running up very quickly, and we can lose some pretty good reps for an issue that really shouldn't be there. So I agree that it should be 2 limit just for us to manage the assembly sort of as best we can, with the ability to sit on more just as non-voting, because just because you're not voting doesn't mean you can't add value to a committee. So I'm done.
Representative Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, first-year representative. Okay. So I see that point really well. But I also like how this is just like an optional, an optional choice for those that might feel investment in other committees or might see purpose in being able to introduce new legislation and actually being able to vote in that, things that they're passionate about. I think that if you're being elected to a certain office, you obviously have things that you're trying to achieve, and you want to help better student life in Penn State in general. So I'm not saying everyone will choose to do more than 2 because it's a lot, but if you are someone who is invested, and if you are someone who has good time management skills, and also the chair can also step in and be like, hey, you aren't being a consistent member in terms of attendance, and you need to choose what your priorities are. And I do think that if you do want to see certain initiatives get through to certain committees, but you're limited by, a limit, you can't really achieve what you want to do, especially the voting. In my opinion, I feel like it does matter because you are voicing your opinion and you are in a way contributing to that thing that you've worked on, either passing or not passing. And I do think it's somewhat important, but I also really like the optional part just in general, because it does give you, it doesn't require it, but obviously it gives that, choice if you want to do it or not. But I can see the other point too. I think that if people are invested, it might, be a positive, maybe. I don't know.
Chair McKay.
Zachary McKay at large. I also agree with the sentiments that it shouldn't be limited. I definitely hear the concerns, and as a chair, I've felt a lot of the concerns in real time, specifically the ones Representative Lizinski mentioned. Gov did end up losing a lot of members this year, many of which just due to general attrition, whether it be people leaving the assembly or just kind of putting their foot in the door for Gov and kind of giving it a test run for the first few weeks, did lead us to have to reallocate some resources. But that's, I think, in my opinion, something that I should have been a little bit more prepared for coming into the role, and that I could have reached out to the previous chair to kind of ask about. So I do think a lot of the responsibility to ensure that reps are being put on initiatives in which they, especially in the first few weeks, can kind of figure out if it's right for them, if they can really take on an additional committee. It's going to be the responsibility, in my opinion, of the chair. And if there are those students who don't have a huge workload this year, maybe they're taking it pretty easy this year, whatever it might be, I think 3 committees is doable. And then it's just going to be up to the individual as well as the chair to make sure that they're continuously putting out that work and meeting quorum and all of that. But I stand in support of 3 committees. I think that's fine.
Chair Clipstein.
Yeah, hi. So can everyone hear me? We're good? Yeah, so I proposed this in the ad hoc on Outreach. And a little bit of my thought process was last year that I sat on governmental affairs, student life, and Outreach, and I found it to be a really fulfilling experience. I was able to be ABTS liaison through Gov. I was able to work on World Culture Week through Outreach, and I was able to work on STI testing in Pause for a Pause and student life, and all those things. It was really important to me that I was a voting member. And I think giving that option to representatives is good, especially if they have interests in a bunch of different fields. Again, it's not a requirement, so we're not forcing people to sit on 3 committees, but I think having the choice to sit on 3 could be really good for people's development.
Representative Burunji, you have a point of.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so since, I don't know if this was already answered, but if Outreach would be becoming a standing committee as Justice and Equity, does that remove the mandate for vice chairs to sit on Outreach, or is that mandate still there?
Speaker Starbuck.
Could you repeat that again? My mic has been breaking up. I haven't heard that point.
Yeah, I was just saying the vice chairs are mandated to sit on Outreach. So if this is now a standing committee, does that remove that mandate, or would it still? Okay, Izzy says it does, right?
Yeah, technically. So you'll see in the Department of Outreach when we go over it in the Constitution, but this kind of removes the subcommittee of outreach in general, kind of allocates some of those responsibilities to Justice and Equity Committee, and the vice chairs aren't because the outreach subcommittee doesn't really exist, that responsibility is removed. If that makes any sense. In my opinion, that's what I believe.
Representative Sanchez.
Yeah, so I just think that honestly, it's not a big issue if someone I feel like we have to trust individuals, and if they feel as though their voice is needed at multiple tables and they're willing to put that work in, I don't think they should be limited by that. So I'm just in favor of having the ability to sit on 3 if someone feels that they can, and that's really just conversations that need to be had between the chairs if there's any issue.
Representative Richardson, I just want to make sure, I keep seeing your name pop up with a hand. Have you been trying to get your name in the queue, or have you been, do you have anything to say? I just want to make sure I'm not glossing over you. Representative Lizinski, in the meantime.
Lizinski at large. So yeah, Chair Clipstein did mention the development, and I think sitting on different committees does provide a holistic view of the UPUA. And I don't think by limiting it to committees is stopping someone from going to sit at that table. All the committee vote is doing is saying, is something ready to go to assembly? We don't really change too much of the spirit of legislation, or you really shouldn't be changing spirit of the legislation within committee, because that should be taken care of before it comes to a committee vote. But you could still have your voice, you still have that voice at the table. I think also, if you're not a non-voting member, I believe you do not accrue attendance points if you miss a meeting because you have 3 meetings. This year, we're fortunate that most of the committees except student life meets on Sundays, but in the past, it's been outreach meets on Tuesdays, and we have Wednesday assembly. Thursday night, it was gov, and then Sunday, it was facilities. So it was, you had UPUA pretty much every night. And I think something we all have to remember is that we are all students first. I don't think, and if you start getting worried that you're going to accrue that many attendance points, it's not a good thing, because you can, like Representative Wood did mention, we could lose some really solid reps if they start accruing points really quickly, because next year the chairs could decide they want to change when these committee meetings are being held, and it could go back to where you might have UPUA every night of the week. So that's something I think we should keep in mind.
Chair Pathfield.
I just want to reiterate the point of like, we are like adults, and I think we should be very much aware of our time constraints, how much we really can take on. If you can't take that, if at first you're like, oh, I can take on like 3, and then later down the line you're like, oh, I'm spreading myself way too thin, you do have the option of talking to your chair and having that conversation with them. But I really, at the end of the day, it is your decision. You should, and like, I don't think we should be limiting it. I think it's really up to the discretion of the rep with what kind of work they want to do in the assembly.
Representative Bose.
To close debate and vote.
Sorry, it was not unmuted. Just to clarify, we're going to vote through the poll and also under participants. I'll launch it shortly. Just to clarify, vote yes is to retain the amendment to steering and keep the charge under steering, and a vote no, or sorry, not the charge, the 3 standing committee requirement, and a vote no is to remove that requirement. Is everybody clear on that? Okay, I'm going to launch the polling now, and please vote in both.
Can somebody remove my host privileges so I can vote?
Can everyone see the poll right now? Because no one's voted. Oh. Let me end polling. Can you guys see it now? Yep, there you go. Yes, Najee, yes is to keep the wording that's in the document that you see. No is to remove it. You're welcome. Again, please vote in the poll as well. We're missing 6 yes votes and 2 no votes in the poll. And that's the official record, just so you know. The one in the participants is so that we can move on with the meeting, but in the poll will be what Tim uses for official minutes. Does anyone have any questions about how the poll works? All right, I'm gonna give it 30 more seconds. We'll do just 2 minutes per vote, just since people seem to be, there's still votes coming in. All right, we're ending voting. That's a good question by Patty, Ben, that there's no abstain option on the poll.
We'll have it for next week. I'm not going to be able to change it now unless everyone exited out.
But if someone abstains, maybe that they can like private message Tim and just like note that they abstain so that when your report comes out, he can modify that.
If you're abstaining, what you should do is you should vote go slower in the participants tab and not vote in the actual poll.
Okay.
So if you need to abstain, go slower in the participants tab and don't vote in the actual poll.
All right, so as you can see, the amendment passes with a vote of 26-9, and it stays in as we consider the bylaw changes. Can we give Tom speaker privileges again, or host privileges, so we can move on?
Okay, so the last thing we have, and you're gonna have to scroll up for this one, is we're looking at, again, at designated members. So we've moved past this to see if the language is anywhere else, and it's not in the bylaws. So I think we ought to vote on designated members as like a chunk, so kind of all these clauses together. And then if it does pass through that, then we can go through individual clauses. But my guess is that it will not pass through that. So if anyone has discussion on it, or we can vote or something, yeah.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
We should definitely have a vote on it though. Like definitely, yeah.
I'm going to close the floor for discussion and we'll move into a vote. I'll resend the poll. This is for the designated member amendments as a whole, yes? Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do it as a whole because my guess it'll get voted down, but if it does pass, then we'll go through individual clauses.
Cool. Well, if it gets voted down, then they get voted down. You can't reconsider them again.
Yeah, well, it's gonna, yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. Can anybody see the poll? If you can't, let me know in chat. Yes, I think people can because they're voting. So please vote in both again. This is on the designated member amendment.
Jake, can you first of all give me host privileges and then also clarify the vote? Or remove my host privileges, sorry.
Just to clarify the vote, a vote yes is a vote to keep in designated members, and a vote no is to not have designated members. We really need everybody to accurately participate in both because this is a close vote. Well, it was. 3 people have not voted in the poll that have voted under participants. It is not hard to do both, folks. Give it 20 more seconds. Please, please vote in both. Missing 5 entire votes from the poll, which is the official record, with votes closing in 5 seconds. All right, that's the end of voting. As you can see, the amendment passes and designated members are retained with a vote of 24 to 12. Can we get Tom back? And it, oh, well, I guess it jumped up at the end.
Yeah. So are we concerned at all, I guess, about it not matching? Because I know Chelsea mentioned just in chat really quickly that it doesn't necessarily.
I agree that it's a concern, but like the margin wouldn't have been like made up for, but also like I was literally saying, please vote in both for the entirety of the thing. I don't know what else to do. And if every vote that we do is invalid because it doesn't match, we're not going to be able to vote on everything because people are having a hard time voting in both, apparently.
Okay, that's understandable. I just wanted to bring that up. We could also vote by roll call as
for amendments. I guess we could, if you guys want to take the time to do that, but
yeah, I just feel like we should vote for roll call as a motion.
Where did Tom go? All right, we'll vote by roll call then. Can someone bring Tom back? Why did we take away his privilege? He was talking.
Yeah, we should definitely vote by roll call if we're not already, because it was close and just the nature of bylaws, you do need a large majority. So I don't want this to be something that, yeah.
Okay, so just to think about the logistics of this, if we're going to vote by roll call just over voice on Zoom, we would have to unmute everyone and then remute everyone as soon as they vote. So
wait, I have an idea.
Yeah, could everyone like individually message me on Teams their vote? If we,
No.
Okay.
We should. This is what we should do. We should do. I think somebody mentioned it. Yeah. So we call names and do a participant response. We could also just have you raise your hand if you vote yes, and raise your hand if you vote no via the raise hand function to get a count. But we could also do individual name calls.
Can we pick one? Tim, what do you think? You're going to be facilitating this. What do you want to do?
I think it would kind of be a mess if we just unmute everyone and then wait for people to say what they want, because obviously we have a lot of people that aren't participating right now. I don't really want to wait for them. I think that utilizing the text feature would probably be the best way of going about this. Does everyone know how to direct message in Zoom? All right, I'm not seeing any no's. Would people be able to direct message me their vote? I can save the chat as well, I guess, for official record.
We should
do. I can save them. I can save.
We should do public. We should just vote in public in chat. So you call somebody's name and then chat they put yes or no, because that's how roll call would work actually. So you don't have to direct message you. You can just message everyone yes or no or abstain. And that's kind of what I think everyone is saying in chat.
Okay, we can do that. Can we put like a timer cap on how long people have to respond?
Yeah, I can give him 10 seconds. How about that? Shorter? What do you think, Tim?
Probably 5 seconds,
Perfect.
I would
got
think.
the timer.
So, as Chelsea said in chat, you definitely want to say like a vote title card and then have people vote yes or no, so it's very clear that there's a vote happening.
Okay. Yeah, and I can do like.
And right before the chat happens, or the vote happens, I'll unmute everybody.
And I can just put something like that, and then people can go and, just stop discussion.
Is that
but
what?
Just sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Just as a point of procedure, are we allowed to nullify this vote since it was something that was already taken technically by roll call? That we, like our definition of roll call in the past, are we able to nullify this and re-vote on it?
We could just say that it didn't fit the. Well, then that nullifies the previous vote, then, doesn't it? Look, I think just nothing is ideal in this. We got to be a bit flexible. I'm fine doing this vote by roll call. I don't think it's necessary personally, but since people have had an outcry about it, we can do that. But can we just, if we do this, just take the previous vote as acceptable, so we don't have to go back and do it? Like, we're not going to be able to do everything perfectly. Is everyone okay with that? We got to have some flexibility here.
I see that Representative Wood has some sort of something to say. I'll unmute.
Representative Wood.
Sorry, I was just gonna say what Jake was gonna say. I didn't get a chance to lower my hand yet. I'm fine with moving forward. I was just pointing out a way to maybe do it when we get to the entire document or something that is controversial in the future. Because like Jake said, the few votes that were off, I wasn't trying to I was just asking a question really when I was clarifying the discrepancy. And if it still would have passed with the correct number of no votes, then I'm fine with moving forward. If it wasn't as much of a discrepancy that would change anything.
I mean, like, just for this, it was an amendment. It overwhelmingly passed. How about for the vote on the entire thing, we can do a vote by roll call and take the time to do it. But for now, what we're doing is essentially doing something that in a physical assembly meeting we would do through consent at some points where there is no physical record. So I would suggest, as the chair, we just take the results as they are for this, because they wouldn't have changed, and then moving forward for amendments we can be more flexible, and then for the whole thing we vote by roll call correctly. And then if a amendment vote is close, we can go back and redo it. If people overwhelmingly hate that idea, tell me in chat and we'll do a roll call for everything. But just for flexibility wise on Zoom, I think that's the best option as a chair.
Okay, we good to move on. It seems like everyone's cool with that idea. I don't see any chat or hands up.
Cool.
Okay, so if we are good to move on, I'll go into the specifics of designated member, because I said we'll go clause by clause if like just the idea passes. So the first clause is, the idea that they're serving as a connection and source of communication, that they're meant to foster collaboration, organizational awareness. I think this thing to take away from this clause is the idea that there's not like an official authority or like elevated status. It's just that version of communication and collaboration. And I think that this is what this clause says. So is everyone good with this clause and its wording? Okay. It says they're elected internally within each committee, as prescribed by the rules of that committee. That's the same language, I believe, that's under the vice chairs, but essentially you'd have somebody, depending on the rules of the committee, but essential process is somebody gets nominated, they would speak, and then they'd get votes within each committee. And then so that's what that clause says in terms of how they'll be elected. And then Part A goes on to say that there'll be an elected designated member for each core standing committee. So the idea is there'll be one for facilities, one for academic affairs, one for student life if you're on justice and equity, and one for academic affairs. And the person will be a source of communication and connection to those. And that's what Part A says. And then finally, Part B specifies that, yes, members of freshman council, again, not the correct wording, but that's what it says. Freshman council are eligible to be elected to serve as a designated member for a committee, with the idea that it's not just reps. You can be a member of freshman council and be a designated member. Is everyone good with that? And then the final clause again specifies that they're supposed to act as a resource, provide info and activities on the relevant committee. So again, it's not a point of authority. It's not like an elevated figure hierarchically. It's somebody that's supposed to provide information and be a resource. So collaboration is improved in the future. And that's all the clauses. So we're good with that. Okay, so I believe that is all the clauses within this document. Oh, John, we have his wording.
Representative Miller.
Yeah, number one, the freshman council thing, but I guess we can't change that. And number two, what is the difference between this person and a chair? Because I know that the argument was that the chair is not going to know every initiative going on every committee. What indication do we get that this person will have more knowledge on things that the chair doesn't? And I don't understand why we need this.
Yeah, so I think the thought process behind it was they'll have more knowledge because A, they're elected to a position and voted in, so they're kind of obligated to have that knowledge. The second point is like, they'll inherently have more knowledge of another committee because normally, especially in steering, chairs will get updates on specific initiatives and that sort of thing, but they won't necessarily be as tuned with the specific work or specific actions of other committees. So the point is to provide that source of information in general. And that's kind of the whole, I guess, idea behind it. Yeah.
I don't know what happened to Tom there, but Representative Jordan.
Yeah, also I think that this was also trying to serve as like, if say like somebody's like a member in governmental affairs, something like if they're in facilities, they can like pinpoint off instead of waiting for the chair to answer the question, because like some chairs might not be available to like answer right away if there's a question regarding another committee. So if you have a designated member, they'll be right on the spot to answer like right away, as like more clarity and like more like efficiency than just like waiting till steering or waiting until the next day.
Chair McKay.
I just saw John Viev's comment. I wanted to kind of use my time to ask that and then I follow up. So vice chairs right now, because we've just removed basically the requirement for vice chairs to sit on outreach, or I believe we will. Regardless, never mind, I'll get back to that one. As for the freshman council, this is kind of like a different point. I know that one of my original concerns and the reasons I didn't vote for designated members was because was the whole problem with freshmen coming in later in the year. The fact that if you elect a designated member earlier when the committee starts up, basically freshmen won't have a chance for that office. And I suppose my only recommendation would be that the future steering, the chair specifically find ways to kind of transition out the role throughout the year so that different people have the opportunity to serve as that connection. And maybe you would give freshmen the opportunity. If anybody has concerns on Part B, that's all I could really offer. That's all I have.
So yeah, I think this is a good idea here because it's different than a vice chair, because the vice chair might not always sit on all the different committees. This year, look, I'm the only one who sits on facilities and gov. I'm the only member that does that. So I think it, in that sense, like it is beneficial because no one else on gov knows what facilities is doing, and no one on facilities knows what gov is doing other than the chair from steering. And I think it could prevent some things like this year where facilities has been working on sustainability for the entire year, and then gov decided to release a piece of legislation in regards to sustainability. If there was a designated member, they could have been like, hey, maybe we should collaborate with Gov because with facilities because they've been working on this all year. And I know there's a lot of representatives that have been taking care of like stuff like this. So maybe we should consult with them first before we continue with this legislation. I also agree with Representative McKay's point about the freshman council members or first year council, whatever we're calling them. I think that they shouldn't be able to be a designated member. I think the designated member should be selected in the spring semester when we are first elected or the future assemblies are first elected, because this is like, you know, the whole summer goes by and a lot of things happen over the summer, or they should be at least. And a freshman coming in, they're not going to know all the different aspects of the committees, and they don't get put on their committees sometimes until October. So that puts them only giving them 2 months in the fall semester, and then the spring semester is short, especially if, like, you know, February comes and goes and then spring break, they're done. So they're only in that role for like 9-ish weeks then. So something to keep in mind.
Sorry, maybe I'm just confused, but did we not vote on this clause? Wasn't that what we just voted on? Like, I understand we're in discussion on the larger bill, and maybe some people feel as though their points weren't made, but I thought we voted on designated members as a whole. So I guess people are well within their rights to continue discussion, but just for clarifying sake, that it passed in, to my understanding, and we're now moving into a vote on the larger thing. So we're just discussing bylaws as a whole. So, yeah. Representative Miller.
I just have a question now. So this is like the last amendment. So there's nothing else after this. So now we're just voting on the whole thing. Yes.
Is that correct, Speaker Sarabach?
Yeah, this is the last thing. We skipped over it because we thought it'd be a point of discussion, and then we discussed it, voted on it. So yeah, we're on discussion of the whole bylaws.
Okay. So there's no other changes. Yeah. Oh, I'm muted. I'm not muted.
I'll mute you. Representative Lazinski. You there?
Don't have anything. I just never raised my hand.
Okay. All right. Okay, Representative Bose.
Motion to close debate again. Sorry.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, seeing no hands raised, we'll move into a vote by roll call on the entire policy. We should take away Tom's host privileges so he can vote.
Before you do this, make sure you do the chat function. Make sure you take a tally of yes and no. And we're voting on all the bylaw changes, I think, correct?
Yes, so this is voting on all the bylaw changes. So do you want to do a yes or no on the participants and also do roll call?
I think roll call would just be easier.
Yeah,
I think let's just do roll call, but just make sure to take a tally as it happens.
Yeah. And what's the number we have, Tim?
Well, I'll let you know as soon as we get I don't know, because people can be in here and not be voting. I don't know.
Should I unmute everybody, or are you going to go through and unmute them?
Go ahead and unmute everyone, because I'm going to go on my list, which is or not even alphabetical, but it's not on the list that Zoom has, so it'll be a little bit difficult for me to scroll and try and find people.
Everybody, I'm going to unmute you. Please remain silent while we vote, and then please mute yourself after you vote, just to make things easier.
I'm just hoping almost somebody in the U.S. Attorney's office.
The first Pennsylvania just died.
Yeah, because he lives.
Okay, so now that everyone is unmuted, could everyone re-mute themselves?
The fact that the President of the United States
Patrick, you're unmuted. Patrick, you're unmuted.
All right, I muted everybody, but I gave you the ability to unmute yourselves for this vote. Okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Whew. All right. So, is everyone ready? Does everyone know what we're voting on? Go ahead and raise your hand or something if you don't know what we're doing. Everyone's good? Okay. Adeline Mishler.
Yes.
Michael Safuto.
Yes.
Alejandro Trejo.
Yes.
Anthony Guzzo,
Yes.
Aphrodite Bisfos,
Yes.
Chelsea Wood,
Yes.
Dan Corcoran, Tomas Sanchez,
Yes.
Eddie Richardson,
Yes.
Kelly Snyder,
Yes.
Aaron Bowes,
Yes.
Genevieve Miller,
Yes.
Healy Osenpor,
Yes.
Izzy Webster,
Yes.
Amanda Bird,
Yeah.
Catherine Shabrel, Alexis Burke,
Yes.
Dan Risser,
Yes.
Lewis Richardson, Patty Brungy,
Yes.
Percy Motley,
Yes.
Ronnie Bergwin, Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Stephen, you're still unmuted. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Yep, I got you. Troy Pryor,
Yes.
Tyler Akers,
No.
Tyler Lazinski.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that?
Yes.
Yes. Una Choi,
Yes.
Kathy Minette Zhao,
Yes.
Kenny Casales,
Yes.
Yuzhen Zhang,
Yes.
Emmanuel Amante, Sydney Gibbard,
Yes.
Alex Wu,
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Cara DeLucio,
Yes.
Zach McKay,
Yes.
Jacob Clipstein,
Yes.
Marlo Galbraith,
Sorry. Yes. Yes. Sorry. I clicked rename, but yes.
Diego Santos,
Yes.
Lexi Pathical,
Yes.
Tom Sarabach.
Yes.
Oh, that was painful, but we got through it. Did I not call anyone?
Was anyone's name not called? Then policy 0714 ad hoc and outreach committee bylaw revisions passes 36-1. Wait, do we have a chat? Oh, passes 36-1 to 0. Cool. Can we add Tom back and move to Constitution?
Okay, I'm back, I think.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go to Constitution. This again is policy 08. The thing I will say about this is this creates the Department of Outreach. It does require 3/4 of all UPOA members to vote, which I believe is 32 people to vote yes. So it requires 32 yes votes to pass. We can go through the specific changes, but a lot of the Department of Outreach is referenced within the bylaws, and this could like the outreach subcommittee probably won't necessarily exist again. It's a decision of the next assembly, but it is only created by a resolution, the subcommittee, so there's a chance it won't exist. So this is kind of creating another outreach function that performs a lot of the same things. That's the general idea behind it. So is it up on the screen? Can everyone see it? Is it visible? Yes.
It's on my screen. It's on my screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, look at Ben's screen. So we'll start with 6.3.8. This is in the executive department section, and it follows the whole thing follows the same structure as the creation of other departments. So it says essentially the Department of Outreach is a permanent subsidiary. It creates the director of outreach as its director, and it kind of defines the department exists. Is everyone good with that clause? Okay. So a lot of the clauses, again, just as a general overview before I go in specifically. Yeah, we can amend we can thumbs up. Yes, good. Amend the Constitution, I believe. the change is only regarding the bylaw, like the constitution, like the thing that limits us is only regarding the bylaw. So we can't amend this. So please come with amendments. But again, a lot of this is recreating a lot of the subcommittee's functions, but making them an executive function rather than the responsibility directly of representatives. So clause 1 is to develop and establish the UPUA's relationships with various subsidiaries and stakeholders and encompass the university park student body. So everyone good with that clause? Have amendments, anything? Okay. Clause 2 is part of the charge is to organize and coordinate meetings with the UPUA's various established affiliates. This goes into the idea that the affiliates, in addition to attending assembly, also have kind of the have a direct line of communication via the Department of Outreach to ensure that we're directly working with these people and kind of facilitates at an executive level that connection. So everyone good with this clause? Okay. Part A of clause 2 is that the Department of Outreach would oversee the process of the creation of new affiliates from organizations with which to engage with the UPUA. So essentially, what this means is that the Department of Outreach would kind of make recommendations and suggestions about new groups to affiliate with, or kind of be the department reaching out to groups that may want to establish an affiliate themselves and then lead them to that process. And they would kind of oversee it in that regard. Is everyone good with that? Because affiliates technically have to be created legislatively, I believe, or via bylaws amendment. But yeah, and so Tomas says something.
Representative Sanchez.
Yeah, so is this also going to apply to helping them do, what about like community representatives and people who are seeking that? Is that going to still say J-Board or?
Yeah, J-Board will definitely still handle all elections of representatives, including community seats. Affiliates are different. I guess the idea behind affiliates is that they're a group that doesn't necessarily need or want representation in the UPUA, but they still are a good like area to communicate with, and they're still a valid organization that, I mean, it could be even other student governments themselves that we want to have a connection with, but they don't necessarily need voting representation. So is everyone good with that part A? Is there any other discussion? Okay. Clause 3 is, this is where it gets into the kind of outreach subcommittee charges that we transferred to this department. Host various events to publicly engage with the University Park student body. This includes meet and greets, semester forums, and UPUA presidential engagements. This actually fits better in a department too, especially because, you know, the president is an executive role. So having an executive department be really in charge with kind of setting up our theoretical Mondays with McKinney into the future, I think that would be beneficial. But we have discussion.
Representative Miller.
Yeah, I wanted to motion to strike meet and greets, monthly forums, and UPUA presidential engagements, mainly because those are all initiatives that, while we may think that they're important, I don't think we should be charging like a future body to do it. So I think they should do that on their own. I mean, I believe they're initiatives because it's on everybody's campaign. So
yeah, Eating with Eaton was definitely an initiative, I will say.
yeah, it just sounds very initiative-y, so I just like to strike it.
Sorry, just to be clear, do you want to strike everything after but not limited to, or just get rid of everything after the first comma?
Yeah, I guess after the first comma, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any discussion? There's a second from Representative Sanchez, so we're in discussion. Any discussion? Representative Akers.
I agree with Representative Miller. I think it's sort of an odd phrase to put in something like a constitution. If we don't like specifically outline like what is a meet and greet, what is a semesterly forum, what is a presidential engagement. I think it's just like a weird thing for us to like put in the Constitution, put on future assemblies, to like have to carry out without necessarily outlining what they look like, and also assuming that those are the best forums for them to engage the student body in the future.
Representative Sanchez.
Yeah, I just was gonna echo pretty much the same thing. I just don't think we really need to have it clearly outlined. I think if they kind of get the gist of it, people want to do it. So.
Is there any other discussion? Chair Pathical.
Am I here? Okay, wait. So we're
Yep.
getting okay. No, I agree. I don't think it should be outlined, but that's also because as a chair, I think you should have your own creativity because outreach is really broad. I think if you're gonna be, or in this term, the director, I think you should kind of have your own, I don't know, use your own creativity. You can do the same thing, or you can also choose to lead the department in a different direction. That's it.
Representative Bose. Sorry, I'm trying to unmute you.
Oh, hi. Sorry. Just out of curiosity, would this also then apply to clause 5, or are we fine with that still being kept in about the monthly newsletter?
Chair McKay. Sorry, I'm trying to unmute you too. It's being slow.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Zach McKay at large. I would say that clause 5, while it was like an initiative at one point, I think has become, I don't know, I was going to say it's become very integrated in the UPUA's kind of activities, but you know, so in many ways has some of those other engagements above. Yeah, I guess I'd be in favor of getting rid of clause 5 too.
Just to maintain clarity for the discussion, can we just focus on clause 3 right now, and then we can go into discussion on clause 5 if people feel differently or the same as far as striking that. So let's just focus right now on striking the language that Representative Miller mentioned, which is the meet and greets, semester forums, and presidential engagements. So is there any discussion on that anymore? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion and we'll move into a vote. We'll do the same informal voting methods that we did for everything but the final vote. So I'll put out a poll for the amendment, and then also please vote yes or no under participants. And then again, this is just to clarify, a vote yes is to strike the language, to remove meet and greet, semester forums, and presidential engagements, and a vote no is to keep what is in the document right now, what is highlighted. I'll relaunch polling. So please fill out both. Tim, could you clarify what exactly it strikes? Someone in chat asked.
Yeah, so Representative Miller's amendment was to strike in clause 3, including but not limited to meet and greets, semesterly forums, and UPUA presidential engagements.
I'll give it 2 minutes. Well, 1 minute and 20 seconds left. 30 seconds. All right, voting is closed. And Representative Miller's motion to strike passes with a vote of 25 to 11. I recommend that we move into discussion of clause 5 because that was brought up in clause 3 unless someone has something on clause 4. But I'll turn it over to you, Speaker Sarabach.
Okay, I just want to go over clause 4 first, and then we can go to clause 5 just for order's sake, because I believe clause 5 is the last clause. So once we vote on that, we can vote on the whole thing. So clause 4 is to oversee all outreach efforts and maintain a list of organizations in contact which may be useful for UPUA collaborative projects in the future. This is relatively general, just the idea that, you know, if we're going to interact with organizations, we should have somebody maintaining contact, and that is the Department of Outreach's responsibility. So we don't have any discussion on that. Okay. Now to the promise clause 5. Again, it concerns the monthly newsletter. Yeah, so if you, it was in somewhat in the line of thinking, I guess, of clause 3, where we tried to copy, you know, outreach exec's functions. Discussion might be a little bit different just because it's not as specific, but I'm definitely welcome for whatever, striking it, whatever. I guess we would vote to strike it, or like it would just vote no on it instead of amending it unless you have an amendment to the wording.
Representative Akers.
So I voted to strike the last one. I actually think this clause is more descriptive and puts real charges in place for the department. So I think the part that we struck in clause 3 was like vague wording about what a meet and greet is, what semesterly form is, etc. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to put in place saying the department along with Department of Communications together have to work together to showcase a UPUA newsletter. Maybe we can strike monthly so we're not like necessarily charging them every month. If, you know, they miss one, they're technically in violation of the Constitution. But I don't think it's a bad idea to like put in place that UPUA has an outreach effort, a newsletter going out to the student body fairly regularly.
Are you making that motion?
Yes.
So Representative Akers motions to strike the word monthly from clause 5. So we're now in discussion on that. Representative Webster.
I would similarly, I'm fine with striking monthly, but would echo Tyler's sentiment that like, I think like striking the above, I think did hit on initiatives and like specific things that the department would be doing. So taking that out made sense. But I think we have an obligation to like maintain some kind of contact with people we're governing. So like if you strike monthly, I think that's a good compromise, but saying they will have some kind of newsletter and whatever shape they want that to be, I think is important to leave in.
Is there any other discussion on Representative Akers' amendment to strike monthly? Seeing none, seeing no raised hands, I'll close the floor for discussion on the amendment. We'll move into voting. So just to clarify, a vote yes is to strike monthly in clause 5, and a vote no is to keep monthly in. So same drill as always, please vote under participants and also in this poll that I am pushing out now. Let me know if you can't see the poll because no one's voting in it. Okay, I will end polling. I'll try that again. All right, I push it out. There we go. I'm just going to give this 1 minute. I don't think we need to wait super long. Give it a few more seconds. All right, I don't think any more votes are coming in, so I'll end it. And as you can see, Representative Akers' amendment passes with a vote of 32-3, and the word monthly is stricken. Oh, Troy, I'm sorry.
Troy, did you want to vote yes or no? I can just add that to the tally. And anyone else who didn't see the poll, I can just add that real quick.
Or if she can put in chat. Okay, that's yes. All right. So with that, is there any other motions for this piece as a whole?
Representative Richardson had a motion that he wanted to add on to the end.
Okay. Can you raise your hand, Representative Richardson? So you jump up to the top. Oh, there you go.
I just want to.
Representative Richardson.
I just want to amend my name to Edred EDRED Richardson at the end of the bill. Well, resolution or whatever it's called.
Can I get a second for that in the chat? You are allowed to change your name, Eddie. All right. Any other motions for these constitutional changes? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion, and we'll move into a vote on policy 0814.
Is everyone able to unmute themselves, or we're doing this by roll call, right?
Yeah, let me change the setting real quick. Yeah,
Okay.
we're doing the same thing, roll call. So a vote yes. Oh yeah, wait, sorry. A vote yes is in favor of the changes, and a vote no is against it.
All right. Adeline Mitchler,
Yes.
Michael Safuto,
Yes.
Alejandro Trejo, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Anthony Guzzo,
Yes.
Aphrodite Bisfos,
Yes.
Chelsea Wood,
Yes.
Dan Corcoran, Tomas Sanchez,
Yes.
Eddie Richardson,
Yes.
Kelly Snyder,
Yes.
Aaron Bowes,
Yes.
Genevieve Miller,
Yes.
Keely Ossenpour,
Yes.
Izzy Webster,
Yes.
Amanda Bird,
Yes.
Catherine Chabrel, Alexis Burke,
Yes.
Dan Risser,
Yes.
Louis Richardson, Patty Bronji,
Yes.
Percy Motley,
Yes.
Rodney Bergwin, Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Troy Pryor,
Yes.
Tyler Akers,
Yes.
Tyler Ludzinski,
Yes.
Una Choi. Is Yuna still in here?
Yes.
Okay. Kathy Minette-Zhao,
Yes.
Kenny Casales,
Yes.
Yuzhen Zhang,
Yes.
Manuel Amante, Sydney Gibbard,
Yes.
Alex Wu,
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Carrie DeLucio,
Yes.
Zach McKay,
Yes.
Jacob Klipstein,
Yes.
Marlo Galbraith,
Yes.
Diego Santos,
Yes.
Lexi Pathical,
Yes.
and Tom Sarabach.
Yes.
Was anyone's name not called? Policy 0814, ad hoc on outreach committee constitutional revisions passes 37 to 0 to 0. All right. We'll now move into the next item on the agenda, which is, can you scroll up to see the number? Resolution 5214, support of Penn State housing reimbursing room and dining charges for the spring 2020 semester. Who's introducing this, Tom?
Yeah, I can introduce this. So there'll be a couple amendments just because of the fact that this was written before they officially prorated it. So there'll be a few amendments, but essentially it's in support of what they did in terms of prorating it. Yeah, so I have a couple amendments, but I'll also stand for question right now.
Are there any questions, Representative Lozinski?
Tyler Luzinski at large. So did the university actually announce how they were going to prorate, or I know they said that they will be prorating, but did they announce how much they're going to prorate, or?
So I have my video on. So I believe that they did announce how they were going to prorate. I think that they said that it was going to be with a credit for the next semester. That being said, it's not specifically outlined in the resolution because of the reason. Again, it was written beforehand, and it's not so much for me, at least, about the specifics of the proration, because they could obviously do a better job here or there, but the fact that they did decide to do it. Yeah.
And not to enter into discussion too much, but one thing that we're going to be asking for to senior admin on our meeting on Monday is clarification and better communication to students on what exactly that means. So the details more explicitly, what you're kind of alluding to. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll now move into discussion, beginning with Speaker Sarabach.
Yeah. So my first amendment is to change the word reimbursing in the title resolution to proration of, just because that's like the official wording they're utilizing. Can I get a second on that? C-phone. Thank you. And then I have another amendment. There's no, okay, well, I guess the amendment I have is to add line numbers. Yeah.
Is there a second for line numbers? Or a C-phone? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. And then before line numbers, or I guess, so this is at the top, like the last sentence of the first page. It said Penn State has yet to announce, previously, again, written beforehand. So it'll be changed to Penn State has recently announced. Yeah. And then scrolling down in the nature of the recommended course of action. Just scroll down. Changing No, never mind. Yeah, never mind. Nope, it's already changed.
Do you have any more motions, Speaker Starbuck, or is that it?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Representative Pryor. What? No?
Hello? Okay, there we go. Okay, wait, this was just asked in the chat by Eddie, and I didn't know if everyone was looking at the chat, but about what happens to the seniors that are supposed to be graduating, like if it's only a credit, then I didn't think we were proposing anything for them, and I just figured it was good to ask.
Again, not to weigh in too much as a participant, and President McKinney might have more details than me, but from my understanding, that we've just gotten that they're working on it, and that's something that we're going to be asking senior admin for more clarity on, especially for seniors. But that's just me. Representative Akers, are you unmuted?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't submit this to Tim, but I would just move to make, in nature of the situation, the NBA read National Basketball Association (parentheses NBA), the National Hockey League (NHL) in parentheses, and the National Collegiate Athletic Association (NCAA).
Could you send those to Tim?
Yes.
I already have it.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, those were seconds. Thank you. Representative Lazinski. Maybe.
Hi. So what I want to know is, like, do we know how quickly they're going to have a plan of action for, like, graduating seniors or people who might not be returning to on-campus living for next year? Because that, I guess, if they're providing a credit, you're not going to need it if you're going off campus next year. Does anyone have an answer on that?
I see Tom literally, so I'm gonna yield him time.
Okay, so I'm reading the announcement right now. So to answer that question, so again, they haven't determined a specific plan, but the announcement says specifically, quote, prorating for student refunds may differ slightly depending on circumstance and may take various forms, i.e. fall 2020 credit. So what I'm reading from that is, if you're an on-campus student and you're not a senior, it'll probably be some kind of fall 2020 credit. But if you are a senior, you'll have a different form of refund. And it depends on your circumstance. And that's what I got for the announcement. Again, I don't know anything about the speed. My guess is we'll hear before the end of the year. But I think because the university is dealing with the immediate action needed in a lot of different areas, they just kind of announced that they have kind of accepted this idea of proration. They're working on the specifics, but there's other things that might be a little bit more pressing at this time. And that's kind of what I got from the announcement specifically.
All right. Tom, do you have more, or can I lower your hand?
That was it. You can lower it.
Representative Risser has a motion.
Yeah. So in the third paragraph, where it says on March 11th, 2020, Penn State announced university will move to a three-week remote learning period. Motion to change that to on March 18th, Penn State announced the university will move to a remote learning structure for the remainder of the 2020 semester. And Tim already has that.
There are seconds in the chat. I can't tell the difference between people who are already in the queue. Can people, if you have any discussion on that amendment specifically, hit the yes check mark under participants? Because if not, we can just accept that. Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll just, oh, yep, there is. All right, can anyone who doesn't have discussion on the specific amendment unraise your hand? So we're only discussion on this specific amendment. All right. Representative Webster.
Mine isn't like an amendment or anything, but I think my general sense is that this is a worthwhile piece of legislation to show
Wait, Izzy,
support.
this
Like,
is just about Dan's amendment.
no, I don't have that.
Okay, sorry, then not right now. Someone put that they had discussion for Dan's amendment. Does anyone have that? If so, please raise your hand. No? Sick. So I'm going to take that as general consensus. Speaker Sarabach, do you accept that as friendly?
Yes.
Cool. So that's added. Now, please raise your hand if you have discussion on the entire bill. Representative Lizinski. If it'll let me unmute you.
Hello. So as Representative Webster was mentioning, I think this is definitely a piece of legislation that we should be considering. Being that we don't have all the details, I just kind of want to get, I guess, the temperature of the Zoom call. If to maybe like wait a week until next week, because Laura and Jake already put the press release out saying that they're in support of something like this, or if they wasn't in the press release, maybe put another one out for the time being. But I think maybe until we wait until after they have that meeting, because I think someone mentioned they were having a meeting on Monday, so we have all the details, because if the administration decides to do something drastically different than what we're assuming, and we put something out in support of it, it could turn around and just be negative for us in the long run. So just kind of want to get the temperature of the room on that.
Chair McKay.
This is not directly in response to Representative Lizinski's comment. In short, I just wanted to add a link to the paragraph, or a link to the story that went out that basically let students know that Penn State was considering prorating these costs. So I'm going to move to add that link as a footnote after the sentence which describes it.
Is there a second in the chat?
I sent that link to the secretary.
If anyone has any discussion on that, I don't think there is, but please press the yes button. Seeing none, Speaker Sarabach, do you accept that as friendly? Yep, I see your thumbs up. Cool. Speaker Sarabach now.
Yeah, I guess this is a little bit in response to a previous statement about, I guess, delaying it. My thought process is a few different things. I think the general idea of proration, and it really depends on how they do it, but I think the general idea is positive. It's something that the student body asked for. You guys saw the unfortunately worded petition I sent in the group, and I received flack from my CCSG friends as well but I think that shows, a student demand. I think there is an urgency when you're dealing with this situation as the UPUA to be kind of actively fighting for and recognizing, when we do have successes and whenever the administration does something good, because there's so much news happening rapidly. I think the meaning behind this loses a lot of value after a week. It doesn't recognize, again, it's not about recognition, but I think it's always good for students to know, like Laura and Jake specifically kind of talked about this with administration and supported this, and then it happened. And I think that's something that's powerful. So I'm really in support of having it this week, regardless of the form of proration, because I think there's an urgency, and I think that this is something that, a lot of us have worked towards. So I think it's beneficial to come this week.
Representative Miller.
Yeah, going back on Representative Lizinski's thought, I think more of not like the temperature of how we're feeling about it, but rather like, do we feel like this goes farther, like as far as we want it to? Because rather than pushing it back, I think we could write in the recommended course of action, like, yeah, thanks, but also do these things. But if we feel like this is a good compromise, then sure. And then that would be more useful for them to go into their meeting and be like, we support what you did, but also do more. So yeah, that's my thought.
practicality wise, as far as that meeting goes, like that will be the tone anyway. It's up to you guys if you determine that it'd be better for us to have explicit language. But like you guys have made it clear just as an assembly, and we can say that like our assembly has really expressed that while general reimbursement is good, we have concerns about seniors and people who aren't returning, and specifically this is what we're looking for. So I think that can be accomplished without changing legislation, just offered by insight. But that's your guys' call, end of the day. Is there any other discussion on this legislation as a whole? Representative Akers.
So kind of going off a few points that people were making, I think we should, and I'm working on the language right now, but clarify in the recommended course of action what such a policy that we would find adequate to cover those charges. We obviously don't have to like hammer out very specific details, but for at least like Laura and Jake's sake, when they walk into meetings next week, they have a very, I'll say firm-ish stance on what the assembly finds acceptable and not acceptable for the proration policy. And so if you give me like another minute, I'm just working on like another sentence that still is like very flexible in like how they can advocate, but I think gives a little bit more clarity about what this would look like from our viewpoint.
Can you send that to Tim, then Tim will let me know when he gets it from you, and I can give you time to introduce the motion.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Representative Lizinski.
Tyler Lizinski at large. So if we're going to be giving support to university offices, the transportation office did also announce today that they are going to be prorating on-campus student parking as long as the student no longer needs the parking pass for the remainder of the semester. Again, they don't have how they're going to be prorating it, or how much students are going to receive back. But I know like my parking pass for the semester costs like $350. So any money in that realm is a decent amount of money. So maybe we should add something in support of transportation services, announcing that they're going to prorate parking too. That was pretty big.
Just because it's more difficult to facilitate conversation. If you'd like that added, Tyler, I'd recommend to make a motion and send it to Tim. Otherwise, if you don't do that, I would recommend a separate piece of legislation. That's your call. Is there any other discussion while we're waiting on Representative Akers' motion? And Tyler, if you could just raise your hand once you send that into Tim, that would be good.
All right, I have it now. Do you want me to read it and then he can introduce it?
Perfect.
Okay, so at the end of the first part of the recommended course of action, he says, this proration policy should adequately reimburse students for services that they did not receive at the end of the semester due to closure, should not affect future student aid disbursements, and should be distributed to students regardless of current class standing. I'll go ahead and send that in the overall Zoom chat
Tyler,
so that you can read it.
Ben, can you scroll down, please? And Tyler, go ahead.
So I just shared it, Tim. Oh, thank you. So I don't know if it's like the perfect language. No, you're good. I don't know if this is the perfect language for exactly what we're trying to do, since I just wrote it on the fly, but I think it adequately captures that we believe it should be some type of percentage prorated amount that will be reimbursed, should not affect future student aid disbursements. That hasn't really been a point of conversation. It's kind of something that just came to me. I don't know later down the road if like the Department of Education will like hold universities giving money back to students like against them. I don't know, but the university should think about that as it's happening, and should also obviously be distributed to students regardless of class standing. So what I mean by that is if you're a current senior or someone who's not returning to University Park, or excuse me, the whole Penn State system in the next year, you still ought to receive your reimbursement. And I guess I'll either stand for questions or let discussion move on.
Yeah, I'll move into discussion on Representative Akers' amendment, which is found in the chat if anyone's looking for it. Is there any discussion on this amendment specifically? Seeing none at this time, seeing no hands, I'm going to go ahead and close the floor for discussion on this amendment, and we'll move into a vote. I'll release the poll. Let me know if you can't see it, but also please vote under participants at this time. I don't think you can see the poll because no one's voting, so I'm going to end it and relaunch it. There you go. Cool. Also, there was a second from Speaker Sarabach. Izzy, can you see it now? I'm getting votes. Cool. I'm just going to keep it open for a minute. All right, I'm going to close voting and polling. Share results. Representative Akers' amendment passes unanimously. Is there any further discussion on this piece of legislation generally? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion on this resolution, and we'll move into the same kind of voting just because it's a resolution. Representative Akers, I already closed the floor for discussion. Is there like an urgent? Okay. So yeah, we're going to move into a vote then. I'll release the poll. Or somebody just release the poll. Please vote in both as always. I'll also keep it open just for a minute. A second. Ben, can you end the poll and share them to the assembly? This resolution passes unanimously. Cool. Nice comment, Eddie. Let's move on to the next piece of legislation, which is resolution 5314 something. Resolution 5314, support of HR 3598, Freed Vets Act. Chair McKay, can you raise your hand so I can unmute you? Chair McKay, please introduce this legislation.
Would be happy to. So this is exactly as the title suggests, in support of HR 3598, the federally requiring Earned Education Debt Discharges for Vets Act, also known as FREED. Consider it freed from financial burdens. This was just recently, last week, passed in the House via a voice vote by my own local representative here in Pittsburgh, Connor Lamb, with bipartisan support. The idea being that if it were to be signed into law by the President of the United States, it would remove all student loans for student veterans who, or for veterans who are looking to engage in higher education and who have received from the Department of Veterans or the VA a rating of 100% total disability. Basically, the way the VA gives out disability ratings is on incremental scales of 10%. And then there's a whole process to figuring out if you believe you qualify for a disability from military service related things. The VA has this whole process, and this essentially removes all student loans or forgives them if you are at that 100% mark. Like most other legislative advocacy efforts, we'll be looking to contact Senators Toomey and Casey, our Pennsylvania delegation, because the bill has now, like I said, passed the House, and it goes on to the next step, which is the Senate. Once it is brought to the Senate, it is very similar to how steering in UPUA kind of determines, or at least in theory, determines where different initiatives go on different committees. This bill needs to be assigned to a committee by the President pro tempore, I guess, of the Senate. Once that is determined, we're also going to be reaching out to the members of that committee, as the legislation here says, urging that it's fully supported and brought through the committee, brought to a floor vote, and then that it's passed. It seems like a very simple bill. If you've, in my opinion, given the most service in terms of your future quality of life, this is just one way in which we can continue to open the door to student veterans across the country. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Chair McKay? Seeing none at this time, we'll now move into nope, Representative Lizinski. Nope. All right, we'll move into discussion. I think he has discussion. So now we're now in discussion, Representative Lizinski. There we go. Yes, Tyler. If you will come unmuted.
All right, there we go. So just for clarification on Chair McKay's point, it is currently in the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. I believe he said that it hasn't been assigned yet, but it was assigned a few days ago on the 11th. So, yep, that's it.
Thank you. Chair McKay?
Add line numbers. Is there a second on that?
You got it.
Okay, and then I'd also like to just move to fix the spacing on the footnotes, a small thing. But I will also, I don't know if I can, it is discussion, so I'll raise the question. Now that we know that the Senate committee, not so much a question, I'm just gonna move to change the line which says the UPUA will direct advocacy efforts toward blah, 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 following the comma, as well as members of the Senate committee which the bill is referred to once that action is taken. I'd move to scratch, and I can write this all down for you, Tim. Scratch, which the bill is referred to once that action is taken, and replace it with the committee which Representative Lizinski just mentioned. Tyler, if you could send me that, I'd appreciate it. Then I can send it on to Tim.
Already got it. You're all good.
Thank you so much.
Can I get a second? Just need 1 second. Thank you, Izzy. All right. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, I now close the floor for discussion and we'll move into a vote. Ben, if you could launch the poll, and if everyone could begin to vote under participants in favor or against this resolution. I'll give it. Ben, I can do it. But you said you wanted to. Give it a minute. Or 30 seconds. Troy, can you just message Tim with how you'd like to vote? I apologize that you can't see the poll. Five seconds. Closing voting. As you can see, there's one abstention, it appears, or no, there's no abstentions. So it looks like to be passed unanimously, depending on if Representative Pryor voted, but it passes in any case. Cool. And we'll move on to the next resolution. Which is 5414, encouraging Governor Wolf and the Borough Council to support a moratorium on evictions. Can you raise your hand if you're introducing this? Jacob, can you raise your hand? Thank you. Chair Klopstein, please introduce this.
All right. Hello, folks. Yeah, so the thought process behind this one is, so earlier this week, I opened up the student life email for students to send in concerns that they want us to bring up with administration. One of the biggest ones that we got was students afraid that they're not going to be able to make their rent payments over the last month. A lot of students who either were working downtown or working on campus now can not return to those jobs, whether because Penn State told them not to return to State College because jobs on campus don't exist anymore. And a lot of them now just they might not be able to make rent meet this month. But some other cities and states across the country have been taking the step of putting a moratorium on evictions for the next month, making sure that even if students don't make their rent, they wouldn't be evicted throughout the month. Cities like Denver, Seattle, San Francisco, and San Antonio have made these calls. New York City made the call, and then the New York State as a whole made the call for the entire state. It's not in the bill, but South Carolina made the decision a little while ago today. The whole state of California has made the decision, so there's definitely some precedent for it. It came up in the Borough Council discussion on Monday. They weren't sure that they themselves would be able to take that action. They looked into it, and Home Charter does prevent them specifically for taking that action, but they're talking about passing a resolution to lobby the governor in order to do it. So what this resolution does is it has us lobby the governor to support a moratorium on evictions and the executive orders he's been passing to stop the spread of COVID-19, and also to support the Borough Council to pass that resolution and to have them lobby to them as well. And then I'll be introducing an amendment that also asks our county commissioners to do the same in lobbying to the governor.
Hello?
Sorry, Representative Mishler, you have a question?
Okay, cool. Yeah. Actually, yeah. So how does this change anything today with the announcement with the call to action for HUD to suspend evictions and foreclosures until I believe it was the end of April or the beginning of April? How on the federal level, what does that affect this, or does it?
Chair Klipsey.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that does it just for public housing. I don't think it does it for all housing. But I will give me like 2 seconds and I'll look more into it.
Can you update us during discussion, Chair
Yes.
Clipstein? Thank you. Any other questions for Chair Clipstein? Seeing none, we'll now move into discussion. Is there any discussion on this piece of legislation? Speaker Sarabach.
Yeah, so while Jacob's looking that up, my thought is with the HUD, I think that really affects housing itself, not necessarily rent-related evictions, if that makes any sense. And I think, either way, it's still advantageous to advocate for it on a state level, just in case there's some sort of lack of overlap. So I think this is overall really beneficial. I think this is really good, and I hope that it has an impact, especially at the state level.
Is there any other discussion at this time? Chair Clipstein, do you have a motion as well?
He's probably looking up the answer to that question, but I can read his amendment if you'd like.
I'm gonna see what he has to say first, real quick.
Hi, yeah, so I have an amendment and the answer to that question. It's for public housing. HUD is also encouraging public housing authorities not to evict tenants who do not pay their rents on time, and is working with Congress to give the agency the authority to prevent evictions in public housing programs. So it looks like it's for public housing and for homeowners with loans from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And then my amendment is just in this second paragraph in the recommended course of action that says the UPUA will also relay this legislation to the Borough Council, showing our support for it. We will ask the Borough Council and our Center County Commissioners to lobby the governor to take these actions in his set of emergency executive orders. And you can fix that language up if you don't love it, but.
Is there a second? Yes. Is there any discussion? If you have discussion, please press the yes button under participants. Seeing no discussion on this amendment, and seeing as you're the author, this amendment is added to the legislation. Is there any other discussion on this piece of legislation at this time? Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion. And we will move into a vote. Same deal. Please vote under participants and also vote in this poll. I hope you can see, and I think you can. And if you can't see the poll, please message Tim directly and give him your vote. I'll give it a minute. Five seconds. Now ending voting. And as you can see, legislation passes unanimously. We'll now move on to the next piece. Resolution 5514, support of online University Faculty Senate UFS policy violation form. Chair Santos, can you raise your hand so I can unmute you so you can introduce this policy or this resolution? Chair Santos.
Okay, cool. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It's basically supporting a violation form through the Faculty Senate. The chair of Student Life and Faculty Senate, alongside Chelsea, created this form. So then basically, if there is a potential violation in policy, it goes directly to Senate and not through me or whoever the AAC chair is. It just streamlines the whole process. This form was already marketed during the academic rights campaign, and it's going to be extended as a pilot program throughout the remainder of this semester and also into the fall 2020 semester. Yeah, so that's basically it. We're collecting the data and we're seeing how many people use the form, and then we're going to create a forensic report in next Senate, whoever is in Senate at that time. That's pretty much it. Chelsea or Aaron, if I didn't hit anything, definitely speak up.
Sorry. Representative Bose or Wood, do you have anything to add to the introduction of legislation? Seeing none, we'll move into questions. Are there any questions for Chair Santos? Seeing no questions, we'll now move into discussion. Is there any discussion? Representative Wood.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Diego and Aaron for a lot of their hard work on something that's been really important to me this year. As chair last year, I struggled a lot with the number of emails and concerns and trying to find solutions for every student that had an issue on my own by independently reaching out to associate deans and professors and department heads. It was a headache and stressful, and I was happy to do it, but I'm really excited that the university sees the value in something like this. But it's really important that we market it as best we can. So I'm going to be working with Liza a lot, especially coming into finals week and with the online period. And even though things are crazy right now, there are still basic academic rights that we need to make sure students are aware of, and they're being treated properly, no matter the situation right now. So I urge you all to vote yes, obviously, and just thanks for all the hard work on it, guys.
Is there any other discussion on this piece of legislation? Seeing none, we'll now close. Oh, never mind. Sorry, Chair Santos.
Just motion to add in line numbers.
Is there a second in the chat? You got it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion, and we'll move into a vote. Please vote under participants and in this poll. I'm going to give it like 30 seconds this time, so please vote quickly. Got like 10 seconds. All right, I'm gonna close the voting. And as you can see, it passes unanimously. I'll move into the next piece of legislation, I believe. Yes. Resolution 5614, support of University Faculty Senate COVID-19 resolution, satisfactory, unsatisfactory grades. Chair Santos, please introduce legislation.
Okay, so this has definitely been a hot topic for the past few days. I found out about this Monday night right before Senate from past Chair Berube of Faculty Senate. And then the next day, all of the student senators talked about it. We agreed on a course of action. All of CCSG and then also lots of the Commonwealth campus senators were also there in the conversation. This was basically brought up by faculty, and it basically relaxes Senate Policy 4960, which is satisfactory, unsatisfactory. Just to highlight the difference between SAUN, which is what like the acronym is, versus pass-fail. SAUN, for a course to be satisfactory, it is a C or above. For it to be unsatisfactory, it's a D or an F. So by having it be satisfactory or unsatisfactory, it does fulfill the requirements for classes to be a C or better, and certain entrance to major, internships, scholarships, things like that. So we're not dealing with any issues with pass fail. Basically, in the current policy, it only allows for 2 courses per semester and then up to 12 credits to be under the SAUN system. But then this resolution that Faculty Senate passed on Tuesday basically says that a student has the option to, if they want to, go satisfactory or unsatisfactory for any amount of classes that they want to. That includes gen ed courses for this spring semester. So basically, you and your advisor will talk about which classes you want to go SAUN and then go from there. You and your advisor will have to figure out if that impacts your student aid or any eligibility for other programs that you're interested in. So even though Faculty Senate passed the resolution, it does not set into motion a plan for implementation. It basically just urges senior administration to find a plan to make this plan real. And then this resolution just adds our support on as well. So yeah, I think I covered everything and covered all the questions that I've been getting in the last few days. Basically, if this were to be a thing, you would have to ask your advisor if that's how it goes, whether or not you want class to be satisfactory, unsatisfactory before the last day of spring classes. So with that, I stand for question.
Tim, do you have like a pressing thing you need to say? Go faster.
No, I'm sorry. I just can't raise my hand because I'm a co-host. So that was in place of like raising a hand for a question.
Okay. Representative Sanchez.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there any discussion regarding students who are studying abroad? I've gotten concerns from a couple people that are abroad about this possibly not applying to them since they are like transferring credits. So I just was interested if there was any discussion regarding that you're aware of, or whether this is something we want to pursue in our advocacy to make sure that those students are also offered that. Because I had a student who was actually studying abroad in Italy when this all kind of happened, and that kind of just really messed things up for him. So
to respond to that, there has not been conversation about study abroad in the past few days about that. In my opinion, I think it should apply. To respond to Izzy Webster's question, this would be in the hands of the provost and senior admin. Chelsea, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, so I can kind of help address that. So when students study abroad, not always, but sometimes the transfer of credits is kind of the same thing as this, where they're not getting a GPA calculation and they're just receiving the credits. So in that situation, it would be the same thing. It would be the same situation. They would receive satisfactory and go about their day, basically. When it is GPA, it is something that the provost does have to consider. And if the student doesn't want that to happen, obviously it won't. They can just choose not to. But it's a complicated situation having to work with possibly the university that they were studying abroad at. But if this does happen, it would most likely be able to work for students who study abroad. Does that answer your question as much as possible, I guess?
Yeah, for like the most part. I think it's just kind of something that we gotta just keep in mind throughout.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions with this
Yeah.
right now because we have to deal with a lot of accreditation issues, especially with certain majors. So it is a complicated issue, and there are going to be circumstances where it doesn't work. You just can't do it. And so that's the real emphasis we have with the academic advisors needing to be consulted because they'll have that information for students.
Chair Paschal, if I'm muted you, yeah.
I have like a question for clarification, just so that I'm covering all my bases. For obviously your major and minor classes, you have to get like a C or better in order for it to count towards your major and minor. If you chose to opt in to do satisfactory, is that still fine?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the exact reason we chose satisfactory, unsatisfactory, is because with a pass-fail, a D is included in passing, and that creates a discrepancy with entrance to major classes. So the satisfactory is required to meet entrance to major.
Thank you. All right.
Any other questions? Yeah, Representative Rodriguez.
Okay, hi, Najee Rodriguez, first year representative. My question was in reference to like something that was brought up. Well, I've heard it through multiple channels of communication with students. Like in the future, I'm hoping that there's more information disseminated, which I'm assuming there will be because it's obvious. You guys said it. It's in the works. For students that are hoping, I was hoping you could shed some more light. I know you don't have all the answers. Whoever can answer this, Diego or Chelsea or whoever in faculty senate. For those who would like to go to grad school, do you guys know the effects that it will have to be seen on their transcripts to have if they opt into satisfactory, unsatisfactory grading, and not just med school but other graduate school situations, because I know that there's some uncertainty. Okay. Sure.
So yes, so this like directly impacts me for medical school. So I asked this for like grad school, law school, everything. Basically, if you were to opt into this program, there would be a notation on your transcript saying like this is the reason why like Corona happened, and also like lots of institutes of higher education will know that like in spring like 2020 like this happened. So lots of the prerequisites for different grad law med schools, they do require like a C or better. So this would pass a majority of those requirements. So this is actually this program is spreading across lots of different higher ed institutions and universities. Like right now, like MIT is one that already has this. A smaller school, I think it's like Journal has it. And I think this is something that most schools are going to be heading towards too, especially with lots of them moving to online for the entire semester. So I guess like that. I hope that answers your question. Like Chelsea was saying, we'll be working with lots of other different schools as well for different like programs and accreditation. Anything else that I missed, Chelsea?
No, you covered it.
Cool. Any other questions? Can someone yield Tim time?
I yield him time.
Thanks. So I think SMEAL has a requirement that you are not allowed to take any classes, not only just major classes, but gen eds as well. You're not allowed to SU those. Is that going to be waived here, or is that still going to be something that's implemented because of accreditation type stuff?
So I'm not quite sure specifically how SMEAL works, and maybe Tom can shed some light on this, but the SMEAL Associate Dean and Dean are on these conversations. They are very aware of what's happening. So I'm assuming if the university does decide to do this, they will have specific information that they'll disseminate to their students about the best course of action in terms of careers and jobs and applying for those sorts of things. But if they do make this decision, it's most likely that SMEAL will also make an exception, but not for certain.
Representative Bose to add on to that.
Yep.
So I, in our student caucus for Faculty Senate, I asked a similar type of question, but more regarding online classes that are currently going on. So if you're half enrolled in in-person classes and half enrolled in online classes, I asked would it, even though it's not really a change in your instruction for those classes, would it still apply? And the way that Chair Berube explained it was if they were to do something, they'd have to do it equitably and try and make it so that every student would be treated the same, and they couldn't really do it case by case that much. So I'm assuming that it would work the same for SMEAL if they're doing the same thing for online courses, but again, that's something that the provost will probably come out with.
Is there any other questions? We're still on questions right now. Seeing none, we'll now move into discussion. Is there any discussion on this piece of legislation? Representative Snyder.
Yeah, Kelly Snyder, College of Nursing. I think this would be friendly just to change in the second to last paragraph the lowercase COVID-19 to the all uppercase COVID, just so it's consistent throughout the whole thing.
Is there a second? Cool. Do you accept that as friendly, Diego? Cool. I see your head nod. Representative Bose.
Yeah, so something that I'd ask everybody in here to keep in mind, I know personally I've been getting a lot of questions from different group chats and stuff asking me about how this implementation works and stuff. Obviously, get the information out and everything that we know, get it out, but make sure that in that information, students are aware that just because Faculty Senate passed it doesn't mean that it's currently implemented. That's something that I know a lot of students were confused about, and a lot of students are asking the timeline of, which obviously we don't know the exact timeline of, but just make sure that everybody knows that it's not currently implemented. It's just us urging the administration to do something about it.
Representative Gibbard. Maybe.
I was just going to motion to add line numbers.
Is there a second? Cool. Diego, I assume you accept that as friendly. Thank you, Representative Gibbard. Speaker Sarabach.
Yeah, I guess on a little bit different, I really want to commend my fellow faculty senators for kind of putting our heads together and really working on this in a very short amount of time, especially Diego for convening student caucus and really communicating our message. And then during the discussion, Chelsea wrote something that was really good that was sent to Senate floor. And I remember it was like, I forget the exact quote, but it was something about like students across the campus are watching via GroupMe. And I remember like hearing it and like jumping out of my chair, which is really awesome. So I just commend everyone that was behind this. It's really cool, and I think it benefits a lot of students. So thank you very much.
Representative Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, first year representative. I just want to say that it's really cool to see like something that gains so much traction on like through petitions circulated throughout the campus. Students were really engaged with this. And it's really cool to see us like take a stance on it in terms of urging administration to take some sort of adamant action on, you know, just improving the circumstances of students that may struggle academically for the remainder of the semester. So that's why I just wanted to really stress that it's so important that we're taking such a strong approach on this. And I really appreciate everyone that put so much work into this last minute, like Tom said. And it means a lot to a lot of people, because another point to bring is people don't have stable internet connections. Some people just cannot operate virtually when it comes to academics, which is why virtual school didn't work out for a lot of people. So I just wanted to stress the importance of us pushing for this until the end, where it hopefully gets implemented.
Thank you. Representative Burunji. Oop, I clicked the wrong thing. Hold on. Can you raise your hand again? Representative Burunji. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, this is a question, but does anybody know if this is like reversible? Like what if someone has like a circumstance where they opted in, but then they decide that they actually want it shown on their transcript, can you reverse it and have the actual grade?
I'm gonna go ahead and try and answer that, Diego. If you want to jump in, go ahead. Most likely not. It's going to be such a headache for the registrar to get this done in the first place. And so it's up to students to make that decision based on what they know about their work and their grade at that point. And it's right before final exams, so they should have a good idea, and it's up to them to make that decision. And I highly doubt the registrar would do a reversal.
Representative Wood, do you have discussion as well? Oh, hold on, I'm going to let Diego, if he has something to add to that.
I just motioned that after the very first sentence, so like this would be the second sentence to read, on March 18, 2020, the university extended the remote online learning period throughout the remainder of the spring 2020 semester. And I sent that to Timothy already, or Tim. I don't know if I said Timothy.
There's a second. Okay. Representative Wood, you have discussion?
Yeah, I was just gonna say a comment quick. I just wanted to obviously thank all the student senators, give a shout out to Cynthia Harrison, even though she's not here, for being a voice for CCSG during this whole conversation. She was very passionate, very engaged, and I appreciate that from her a lot. In terms of like the comment I made on the floor, I did mention that there was an unprecedented number of students who are paying attention to Faculty Senate. As we all know, it's not the most exciting thing, and we don't get a lot of attention for what happens, which is totally fine, but I think it was really cool to see the student body engaged and really understanding that Senate exists and what they work on, the impact they can have on students. So the work's not done. We do have to advocate, and once the decision is made, we do hopefully have to get the information out to students about the process and all that stuff and make it clear, and it's going to be on all of us to do that. And really in the future, moving forward, keep students engaged in Senate and the important decisions that we make there.
Is there any other discussion on this piece of legislation? Okay, seeing none, we will now move into a vote. As always, please vote under normal places. Let me share the poll. I'll give it a minute. A few more seconds. All right, I'm going to close voting. And as you can see, it passes unanimously. We'll now move into, I believe, the final piece of legislation. Could be wrong. Benjamin. So we have two more, I see, from Tom. Sick. All right, resolution 5714, support of paid leave for student workers due to campus closure and the coronavirus pandemic. Speaker Sarabach.
Okay, so this kind of came out of the idea similar to the eviction piece of legislation we passed where like a considerable portion of students are out of work. And I've seen a lot of and heard from a lot of students that are really worried about where their income is going to come from. A lot of people required, their university wage job to kind of live day to day. And I don't think that changes necessarily because they're away from campus. So the idea behind this is, me and myself and co-sponsor, as well as Representative Clipstein, Chair Clipstein, have also asked Lauren Jake to advocate for this. But it's just kind of the idea that paid leave for students would be really beneficial. Certain corporations have started to do it. The United States government has kind of considered doing it on a lot of different aspects. But I think that this would just really, really benefit a lot of students that are already, kind of shaken by this whole thing, but now they're also really financially worried. So that's kind of the impetus of this. I also included in the recommended course of action a reference to pushing out the emergency fund from Student Care and Advocacy. The idea that obviously paid leave would be really beneficial, but it's a hope. It's not 100% guaranteed or anything, but the emergency fund definitely exists. So pushing that and then at the same time advocating. And so that's kind of what this is.
Are there any questions for Speaker Sarabach? Representative Rodriguez.
Hi, Najee Rodriguez, first year representative. So I realize that this would probably be like an logistically impossible. I don't even know how it would be enacted, but it's also important to recognize like the work study students that are sponsored federally and of course by Penn State because it's paid half and half. I was just wondering, I don't know what the university is capable of contributing, or even because I'm in work study, and when I spoke to the people in charge, they said Penn State puts like $350 into it or something, $450. It's half and half, something like that. Is there any way that this could be also applied to work study? I'm assuming not, since it's a joint effort. And that's just, there's so many complexities, but if you could offer any suggestions or advice or just anything in relation to that so we are more informed, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, my thought process is that this would apply to students in work study. I mean, if Penn State plays a portion, I guess they should pay it. I think that group of people as well were specifically in my mind whenever I wrote this, because it's a guaranteed group of people that, again, really rely on that income so they can live and learn day to day. So my hope is that they would be included in that. And I don't know if you have to specially denote that. Maybe you do, and that'd be okay in my mind. But that was my hope as well, is that, that's another, I guess, somewhat vulnerable group of people during this time as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Speaker Sarabach? Seeing none, we'll now move into discussion. Representative Richardson, do you have a motion? Maybe? Nope. We'll begin with Representative Akers. If he will be unmuted.
Tyler Akers at large. So I really support this legislation. I think it's really critical right now. Students who are obviously students who are working on campus really do need that income, that support. Many of them to pay their own bills. And so this is something I've been, I discussed slightly with Barry, figuring out a way to pay students who are receiving their wages from the student fee. So mostly campus recreation, as well as a few within the Center for Sexual and Gender Diversity, UPAC, etc. But Student Affairs has been given the direction to try and find students remote work to do to be compensated. Obviously that's tricky for like offices like campus recreation, where primarily most of that job is done physically. And so I think there's definitely a nuance here of like, how do you provide 10-day sick leave to some students or all students, and then still provide remote work for students to work on top of that. So I definitely support this. I think it's something we all should be advocating for, and just understanding, though, that there are a lot of nuances for the university to look at and to explore in this really crazy time.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Representative Richardson.
Eddie Richardson, Black Caucus. I want to amend the title to read COVID-19 pandemic, since that's the proper name of it.
Is there a second? Tom, do you accept that as friendly? Cool, I see you shaking your head. Thank you, Eddie. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would ask you to vote in all the right places. I'll stop sharing this. I will send this out. And I'll give it about a minute. Except I don't think people can see it because no one's voting. Give me 1 second. There you go. Now I'll give it a minute. A few more seconds. Close voting. As you can see, resolution passes unanimously. We'll now move on to Resolution 5814, support of relaxing synchronous online class state requirement for Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency financial aid beneficiaries. Rolls right off the tongue. Is that Chair McKay? Whoever it is, can you raise your hand? Oh, it's Diego.
Okay, I'll go first and then Zach can go after to explain the government stuff. So basically, since we're on remote online learning for the rest of the semester, we all have to take our classes at the same original time as if we were doing it in person in the Eastern time zone. Obviously, this creates lots of different inconveniences for people who might be in different time zones. People have to balance their schedules and also like log on at like 2 in the morning sometimes if they're in a different time zone. The reason why we're on this synchronous class schedule is because FIA requires that students are on this schedule in order to receive aid through their state grant program. We're just advocating to FIA to relax the policy so then professors are able to do asynchronous class schedules. So basically having like rolling deadlines, like assigning something at the beginning of the week and like having that be due at a different time other than the regular class time, just so that people have more flexibility. Real quick, Senate did pass on Tuesday a similar policy that prevents synchronous online meetings during a campus closure in like cases of like a snow day. So we're basically saying that if this happens during a snow day, then it should also happen during this time as well. And then Zach can go ahead and talk more about how we're going to advocate to more people.
Can you raise your hand, Zach? Thank you.
Zach McKay at large. Thank you, Diego. As mentioned, this is a FIA requirement, so it falls directly under the state government. The governor then, as his administration, would have to, in one way or another, support this relaxation. There's already been a big push by the well, we actually don't know the magnitude of the push, but we know that the support is there from the university, already directed towards the governor and his state government. So now our additional support would be directed toward the governor's office, as well as the FIA board of directors who would eventually make that call. We'll be relaying a copy of this resolution, like most gov things, to CCSG, GPSA, as well as PASS and the World Campus Student Government Association, because at the end of the day, if they relax that requirement, for the students who are usually attending University Park equitably, they should also relax it for World Campus students. That's about it.
Are there any questions for Diego or Zach? Representative Biswas. maybe.
Yeah, did you guys happen to check if relaxing the synchronous online classes would affect the service record of international students? Do you know what service record is?
I'll keep you guys unmuted.
I will yield my time to Representative Wood.
Hi. So yes, that is being considered in this advocacy, and there are issues with international student visas with the resident instruction requirement that goes along with that. So while it is being considered, the relaxation of FIA, hopefully in coordination with the university, would not impact visas and that sort of things for international students. We don't have a clear answer at the moment, but they're not going to allow something to happen that would risk that for international students. The university won't do that.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Are there any other questions? Representative Wood, do you have a question too, or did you just raise your hand to help?
Oh, no, I just raised my hand for discussion, but then I answered a question.
Seeing no questions, we'll now move into discussion. Chair McKay. Maybe.
All right. Take two. Zachary McKay at large. I just moved to add line numbers first.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then second, just to add a space in between all relevant channels and respectfully submitted at the very end.
Second.
That's it.
Any other discussion? Representative Wood.
Yeah, so I just wanted to speak a little bit more on this. According to President Barron, the impact of not requiring synchronous classes and switching to asynchronous right now without the relaxation of FIA would cost Penn State students millions of dollars in financial burdens collectively. And that's not something that we are able to do, even though the administration understands all of the problems that students are facing right now in terms of time zones and family obligations and quarantines and technology issues. It's just not something they can risk right now that burden on students. So Diego and I are both in constant communication with Yvonne Diaz and Renata Engel, who's in charge of World Campus, to make sure that these requirements with the percentages and ratios of instruction versus online courses requirements, we're not endangering any students right now. But in terms of the magnitude of the push, the university is being very strong. They're being very vocal, and they are communicating with different schools. I was not given specific names of schools, but they are coordinating with Pennsylvania schools to relax this because it impacts students across the state. So yeah, a lot of students have brought issues to us about the synchronous learning that they're individually facing, and as much as we want to give them the answer of it's going to change and we think we want to make your lives easier, we just can't do that right now because of that financial risk, and this is the only way we'll be able to relax that requirement. So it's hugely important, and when it comes time to advocate, we're going to ask all of you to probably get involved if we're not seeing results or if we're getting pushback from VIA during their next board of directors meeting. But just keep updated with us, keep following this information, and once we get an answer, please be very adamant with us in getting that out to students.
Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for discussion, and we'll move into a vote. I just launched the poll, but no one's responding, so I don't think it launched again. Give it a minute. Ten more seconds. All right, I'm gonna close voting. And you see that it passes unanimously. All right, I think that's it for legislation now. So can we pull back up the agenda, or is that on someone else's screen?
Tom, can you pull it up? Liza left.
Can we make Tom a co-host again?
Tom? Oh,
I don't know if we necessarily need the agenda because I'm like 95% sure the next thing is Chief Justice report, then Speaker report, then comments of the chairs. And I don't think any of the chairs are commenting, but I don't think we need an agenda.
Chief Justice Schuckman. Oh, wait, can you raise your hand? So I can unmute you. Thank you. Chief Justice Schuckman.
Okay, hi everyone. So first things first, as I'm sure you're all already aware, we made the decision a few days ago to move the election to April 15th. This decision was made by me and the rest of the Elections Commission in conjunction with conversations with Jake, Laura, Tom, and the rest of steering. So we did have the full support of steering behind us, and I did also consult with both Barry and Jen Grossman-Leopard, who is helping me construct the ballot for the election, so everyone is aware of the change of the date. The Meet the Candidates event is sadly postponed forever. We are currently working on virtual executive debates. We are not really sure when those will be or what they will look like, but when we have that all figured out, you will definitely be informed. Again, all updates regarding elections can be found on Twitter at UPUA Elections. If anything else changes, we will definitely let you know there. I know a lot of you may be disappointed. I know a lot of you have been preparing for elections, but I want to let you all know that I am still putting in my best effort to handle elections, even though we are remote. And again, if anyone has any questions or concerns at this time, please reach out to me, and I will stand for questions now.
Are there any questions? Representative Akers.
Tyler Akers at large. I really do support the moving of Election Day to be able to better adjust to moving it all online. I'm just curious because Section 5.6 of the Elections Code says that campaigning will be limited to 12 academic days prior to the election. Why is campaigning already occurring?
So since campaigning was already scheduled to begin this past Monday at 8 a.m., we had just decided to go ahead with campaigning. The moving of the election date was to extend campaigning. I think most of the logic behind that was that campaigning will be much more difficult since it's all being done obviously over social media remotely. So giving students more time to campaign will allow them to reach a larger demographic of students since they won't be able to reach those students in person. So personally, I thought that was the best idea.
Representative Runji. Sorry.
You said me, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry if you already said this, but did you say that we're still going to have the presidential debate or not? I mean, the executive debate.
So there will still be some form of the executive debate. Obviously, it will not be tomorrow night. We are still thinking about a different time, considering the possibility of having multiple debates since we do have a longer campaigning period. Again, they would have to be done over Zoom or some sort of remote communication. So I'm just trying to figure out what the best way to go about that would be, but there will definitely be at least one, hopefully 2 debates.
Representative Lozinski.
Tyler Lidzinski at large. So I know we allocated some money for the elections. Obviously, we're not going to need all that money, especially for like meet the candidates. I don't know what was spent already. Were we able to like get that money refunded for anything we were spending? Like I know for like event management, I'm sure they refunded money. But can you just talk on that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. So the items that I had already ordered a few months ago, obviously, those will just be saved for next year's election. They didn't have the date on them, which was obviously a good foresight, and we can reuse them next year. I did contact Hub Events. Obviously, all of the room reservations that I had made were canceled. I believe we're getting the money back. I just have to double check on that. And I know Ben has the numbers of exactly what was spent. I believe it was between $400 to $600. But obviously, aside from candidate reimbursement, we will not be using any more of the money that was allocated towards elections.
Representative Wood.
In terms of the election moving completely online, it's kind of a two-part question. So first, does the Elections Commission have a plan to utilize social media to get voting out and information out prior to actual election day?
Yes, so I had spoken with Laura a few weeks ago. I had actually written out an email for her to send out in one of those authorized mass mail that she gets. And that was planned to be sent out, I believe, 2 days before the election. I'm not sure what the current state of that is. I would have to consult with her on whether or not we can move that to accommodate the new election date. I'm definitely utilizing the elections Twitter to the best of my ability. I would also encourage everyone currently in the UPUA to use social media to inform others about the election date.
All right, thank you. And then also, in terms of everything being done remotely, is there any rule, I guess, I don't know if it's an official rule or anything, but concerning the voter turnout and how this is just my opinion, but it's going to be severely lacking this year. Is there any talk about minimum student engagement to validate such an election and possibilities of problems if voter turnout is extremely low?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I do anticipate that there will be a pretty low voter turnout. On one hand, a lot of people are stuck home. They are probably checking social media pretty frequently. I would hope that at least some people are drawn in through social media traffic and are made aware of the election. But obviously, voter turnout has always been a large issue. I don't think that there is any issue with validity. I think even if 10 students voted, it would still be valid. Again, I think Barry and the Office of Student Affairs might be a better person for me to reach out to. And I can definitely reach out to them and get a better answer on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, can you guys hear me, or can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Rachel, just to follow up to Chelsea's question about the mass email, it did get changed to the new date, so that's all set. That's already adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Representative Lozinski. It's not letting me unmute you. No, you disappeared. Chair McKay, Representative Lozinski, if you have to speak again, please raise your hand again because you left the queue.
Zach McKay at large. I guess a question for both the Chief Justice and President McKinney. When you had mentioned that the email was reflected for the new date, were you referring to April 15th or still 2 days before April 13th? I think she needs unmuted.
Muted on.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
As of right now, I have it as the day before, the election. And then I talked to Barry as well about sending one out earlier. So like maybe one by the end of next week, if we can get it approved in time, just to say like, this is happening, like there's a date change in the election. And then also one right before, just like as a reminder, tomorrow's election day. So we're trying to get that together. I'll be working with GPSA President Claire Kelling on that, since theirs is at the same time. That's helpful.
Representative Mishler.
Yes, I know that the first question kind of talked to this, and I don't want to reiterate, but just I'm still a little bit unclear. It seemed like at first, with this whole, the kind of breaking of this and the question coming up on the date, it seemed as if there was kind of a push, or maybe like the first thing that was thrown out was like April 8th, which would have still delayed, but not been as late as April 15th. Just kind of curious how that specific date was talked about, if we could talk about that further. Just obviously, you want to give us time. It's a lot of campaigning time now. But also, the transition period is going to be significantly drawn. And of course, this assembly will be in action for much longer. So yeah, just any specifics on kind of the flipping of that and how that happened.
Yeah, sure. So when I originally had this conversation with Tom, Jake, and Laura, I know one thing that was brought up was making sure that we had enough time to finish out the 14th assembly. And then after conversations with them, I did reach out to Barry. Barry had advised me to have the election early enough to allow the new leaders of the organization to get situated. Ultimately, I did let the Elections Commission make the decision. I did believe that they should have input in it. And the majority of both elections commissioners and people on steering, I believe, had thought that the 15th was better than the 8th. At first, I was personally in favor of the 8th, but hearing just the input from everyone else, hearing that they would appreciate another week, I thought ultimately I should listen to whatever else, the concerns that they were bringing to me, and I realized that the 15th was the better date.
Representative Lizinski.
All right, Lazinski at large. So I guess I don't know who really can answer this question, if the Chief Justice will answer this, or President McKinney, or Vice President Griggs. So being that elections are not until April 15th, are we having a meeting after next week, or is next week still our last General Assembly meeting?
That's a Speaker Sarabot question. Speaker Sarabot.
Tyler, just want to let you know I missed my name there, so I noticed that. No, so I talked about this with the chairs. I think we should just have one more meeting next week. I don't think we should extend our terms. If you want a fun fact, because of the way Penn State scheduled this year, we actually had one extra week anyways, which is kind of fun. But I think we can wrap everything up next week. And I think with online classes, I don't think we should, and this meeting being, this is a 3.5-hour meeting on a Wednesday, I don't think we should continue past next week. And that's my take. And I think most of the chairs have agreed to that. And I think most people would.
Chair McKay.
Zach McKay at large. Kind of first in response to the fact that it's Rachel's time for questions, do you think it might be possible to put something on Canvas very similar to how we did PSU votes this past year? I could send you the contact info. Do you think posting something there might help students on election day for UPUA turnout?
Yeah, I would definitely be open to any suggestions that anyone has to improving voter turnout. So if you have more detail on that, I'd love if you could just shoot me an email about that. We can discuss it.
Yeah, pass it along. The only concern that I see with the proposal, though, is the fact that voter registration for Pennsylvania, if the primaries aren't pushed back, is April 13th, which means that if we have a lot of PSU votes things going out digitally, encouraging that people register and vote by mail, and at the same time, we're having the university push UPUA election stuff, I think it could end up confusing people. I hope not, but That's just the only thing to consider, and we can chat more about it later. But I'll send you that stuff.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, and we can definitely have a longer discussion outside of this meeting.
Representative Mishler.
Yes, hi. This isn't specifically for Rachel. I know that the process of like removing a justice in an election would kind of make the people that are in steering that are running in the election like not be a part of that vote as they kind of have like a personal stake. And I guess for just assemblies moving forward for like big decisions surrounding elections that obviously need to be discussed in the steering committee, obviously, but that's kind of tough because there's no formal policy that like people running in the election can't be a part of it. And obviously we're very blessed to have a very like trustworthy and transparent steering. You know, you never know what the future will look like. So just for the good of the order, like going forward in the future, maybe being more open, like with an entire assembly. I know that that's really difficult, but yeah, thankfully we have a trustworthy and transparent current steering, but just want to make sure in the future we're doing things good too. Yeah, that's all.
Just as a reminder, this is time for questions, but.
Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Chief Justice Schuckman? Thank you, Rachel.
I have one more thing to add really quickly. So there is currently nobody running for both the College of Arts and Architecture seat and the College of Agricultural Sciences seat. So if you or anyone that you know are interested in those seats, definitely encourage them to run as a writing candidate. Also, we have a Google form open and we're currently taking questions for the executive debate/debates. You can find that on the Elections Commission Twitter, which is @UPUA Elections.
Thank you, Rachel. Speaker Sarabach. Oh wait, no, Chair McKay, do you have another question?
It's in response to something that was just brought up. Should I wait for that later, or I didn't hear you?
Like, is it for Rachel, what you just said?
Or Adeline?
Oh, no, yeah, just do it later. All right, Speaker Sarabach, your report. Speaker Sarabach. Are you there? Tom?
Hello. Sorry, I accidentally exited out. Is it time for my report or?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll try to keep it short. Thank you so much to everyone for this meeting who attended via Zoom. I know it's difficult online. Thank you for putting in effort. Thank you for continuing to discuss. We passed really great legislation tonight. It's a culmination of a lot of work with people here in response to something we never could have expected, you know, even a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So thank you so much. Everyone I've seen in UPUA as being an amazing leader. And I think it's just really great. And I think, and I've told Laura and Jake this and some other people, but I really think that this is an equivalent time to, you know, if you think about the issue with Penn State football in 2011, I think this is a pivotal time for our student government. So I thank you guys for continuing to step up, continuing to lead. I know the student body sees it, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for tonight. Just thank you. And we will have, again, one more assembly next week, and then that'll probably be it. But thank you so much. I'll leave it there.
Are there any questions for Speaker Sarabach? Seeing none, are there any comments of the committees? Okay, seeing none. Oh, nope, Chair McKay. Sorry.
Two quick things. My report, I believe, mentioned something about a digital Capitol Day. It was released today that the Office of Government Community Relations will be postponing all forms of Capitol Day until further notice. So there's nothing that we're looking at for March 24th. Scratch that off your calendars. Unfortunately, please also don't show up for the PSU voter seminar with Representative Conklin. He could show up by himself, but I'm going to encourage that none of you do. And that's it.
Are there any questions for Chair McKenna? Are there any comments of the committees? Vice Chair Jordan, or is this a comment? Nope. Okay. All right. Are there any comments for the good of the order? Briefly, I ask. Chair McKay.
Yes, really quickly on the comment, which was mentioned during the Chief Justice's question time. In short, steering did not officially vote on the decision to move Election Day. Know in full conscience that, for example, I would have abstained if that were the case. Instead, the Chief Justice did ask for our opinions as a collective group, to which we responded, but had no formal say in any of the decisions to move Election Day or start campaigning early or anything like that, just for full transparency.
Representative Jordan. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Okay, real quick, obviously this is kind of like a self-explanatory, but just so you guys know, the ticket amnesty program that was supposed to happen next week and the week after that is postponed to the fall. So if they didn't send the emails out, but if somebody asks you about it, just say that's still like next fall. FYI, it's kind of self-explanatory, but.
Thank you. Representative Castalls. 1 second. Oops. Yep. Kenny. You there, Kenny? Kenny. All right. Sorry, Kenny. Representative Lozinski.
Hey everyone, real quick. So we're still moving forward with office space applications. We're going to be doing them over Zoom, so that should be interesting. Break zone going to open eventually. So stay tuned, I guess, for the fall, I guess now. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, make sure you let your orgs know. If anyone's involved in any other orgs, to be on the lookout for who's getting space and who's not getting space. Because it's going to be an interesting how we're going to be handling this over Zoom. That's it. Stay safe, everyone.
Kenny, go ahead and raise your hand again. We'll try again after Representative Miller. Representative Miller. 1 second.
Yeah, hi. So I've been talking to a few students, and one of the concerns that I've been hearing is the fact that people are now going to have to like spend more money just to come up here and get their stuff. So I wondered if we could maybe do like a lift bill again, but kind of like getting from like the bus station or even like the airport, just to like alleviate some sort of burden off of people. Yeah, that was my thought. My second thing was I know that now like the chair confirmations for the next assembly and also like the liaisons are going to be pushed back. However, my term for borough ends on May 1, and I don't know if that's going to be enough time, or when, like I don't know the new timeline. So I just want to know what I should be doing. Yeah, I'm kind of in this limbo where, yeah.
I think me, you, and Tom can talk after. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Genevieve. All right, Kenny, let's try this again. Can everyone else hear Kenny? It's not just me. Kenny, my boy. I want to hear it. Oh, Tomas. Tomas, raise your hand. Representative Casals through Tomas.
Yeah, y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone is in good health, your families are well. MGC is trying to do some programming over this time period through like IG Live or something. I know other Greek organizations like MPHC have been doing some programming through IG Live. So yeah, more on that to come. And question for Chief of Staff Cutler, any updates on the Patagonias?
Benji.
they'll be there when we get back. I haven't heard anything. But yeah, I don't know what we'll do. We'll get them, and then yeah, we're gonna kind of play that one by ear. I'll follow up. I'll let you guys know.
Cool. Representative Lozinski.
Yeah, so just wanted to make a quick point on, I think, I forget, John Viev, I think, made the point about the lift codes. So I don't think we use all our lift codes because we were supposed to be having them for when we came back from break. I've been in contact with Lyft. We were going to extend it, but now there's really nothing to extend it to. So Lyft is kind of going through some rough things. I heard back from our contact today. So I'll contact them about maybe having it from like the airport because people have to move out. As for like Walmart or the Greyhound station, we normally don't do that because there is a Catabus that goes from Walmart. I don't know if Catabus is running, but yeah, I'll have something and I'll work with Chair Galbraith on that. So everybody knows we didn't use everything from the spring break anyway, so we have the codes.
Cool. Chair McKay.
Zach McKay at large. I hear the idea for the lift code and bus subsidies, getting them to campus and from wherever it might be that they're being picked up. The only concern that I could see with that is that students are coming back to campus to pick up all of their stuff. I'm not sure that many students would be able to bring home everything in a lift or in a bus. Maybe they would, and if they would, I think it's definitely worth pursuing if it helps even a few students, but it would definitely be, we should keep in mind that not as many students would use those services because they will have so many things to bring home.
Are there any other comments for the good of the order? Seeing none. Tim, do you have closing roll call handled?
Could everyone just stay in for 20 seconds while I get everything marked down?
In the meantime, I'll let Najee go as the last comment for the good of the order, as Tim does that.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I was trying to charge my laptop. It was about to die. I'm still trying to do it right now. Wish me luck. But I'm just hoping, I just want to make this a point, collective brainstorming with everyone. So for a lot of out-of-state students, as we all know, there's a pandemic going on, and it's advised that there aren't large conglomerations of people, and that's going to kind of result from like whenever Penn State announces their move-out days, there's going to be some sort of issue with, large amounts of people. For out-of-state students that have to mount their entire life for a year into their cars and travel through multiple states most likely or anything, I'm just wondering, I'm putting this out here because there's so many people that could possibly contribute to an idea of this, but there are like packages that UPS and USPS, I forgot their names, that give out. Is there any way that we could work on something, this is rhetorical obviously, that would give these boxes for out-of-state students to ship back to their houses, just so they're not transporting across state lines, having to stop at places, making their exposure to COVID-19 more prominent, just to kind of reduce that. So I'm putting that out there as something that I hope we all can collectively work on to find a solution, work with the local United States Postal Service that's in State College to buy boxes or something. But thank you. I just want to put that out there because no one's really considering that. Any help with that, please contact me. I would love to work on something in the future because it's super important. We kind of need to start working on that. Thank you.
Aphrodite, do you have something?
Yeah, so kind of going off of Najee's point, for a lot of international students even, transporting all of our stuff is impossible for us. So what we usually do is make use of things like Storage Squad and put our boxes in there. So this is something I was discussing with global programs recently, but is there any way we could advocate for subsidized costs with Storage Squad or something like that so that people are able to afford that? Because so usually when we go for the summer, it's 3 months of storing something, but now it's 2 additional months and it's really expensive for everyone. So maybe we could look into some sort of subsidies there.
Thank you. Are there any comments to the order? Nick or Tim, are we good?
Yeah, I'm good. I got everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned at 11:45 p.m. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a good night. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks, Jake. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you, guys.
All right, Ben, are we staying back to collect papers?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, who left their Starbucks cup in my house?
Please put your papers away. Recycle them.
We finally went paperless.
Did
We
great.
did it.
Ben.
We did it.
Mom.